Hi everyone, welcome to the crossover episode with the RoboCast, Behind the Bots, and Outside of the Box. These are all our opinions. Have mercy. It was a lot of fun to record. Highly recommend you go and check out all the people in this podcast in the description. And yeah, buckle in. It's a wild ride.
This week on all of our respective podcasts and shows, it's time for our annual crossover episodes, with Behind the Bots, the RoboCast, and Outside of the Box. This is honestly my favorite show of the year. I love you guys so much. You're my dear friends. I don't know. I feel like there's always this like kind of weird question that I sometimes get, like, oh, do you like hate one another? Like,
oh yeah,
other shows,
I hate you all. Shocking.
You know what I mean? And it's like, no, not at all.
We talk pretty much every week.
We have a group chat. We all like get in it and mess around and have a good time. And we all like each other a lot.
Yeah, I watch all Robot Combat, and I'm gonna say the three of us, we're the three shows. We're the best, out of all. So this is great. Okay,
Christine, by the way, welcome to the top three after only being here for like literal months. You're amazing. We all
it's been a year, Kyle. It's been a year for Christine.
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
Christine, how many episodes have you put out in the last year? Just before we get started.
5 times more than the rest of us.
Yes.
So as of tomorrow, I'll be posting episode 111.
Jeez.
Wow.
It took us like 2 years to get to that.
I think it's gonna be 5.
Yeah.
As soon as the season ends, that's enough for me. I need a rest.
Yeah, 4 years in, Behind the Bots has put out 170 episodes. You're going to have that number by like the fall. So like that is wild. So
the work ethic is just unbelievable, and I have to
it is.
I have to tip my hat to you because I couldn't do it. I really couldn't.
Listen, in 1 year's time, we are either going to all be working for Christine or we'll be dead by her hand. Okay, that's the it's true. All right. Well, okay. So if you recall, Sam, like last year, our unofficial theme was the gang fixes BattleBots. It was like what's wrong with the show? How can we fix it?
Yeah, I mean, if we remember back, we were all pretty, I think, jaded and upset about how BattleBots ended in 2021. Not the outcome of the show itself, Tantrum winning was incredible, but there was a lot of messiness, and there was the messiness behind Minotaur and Witch Doctor fighting and the whole fallout from that, which it's been, as much as it was annoying to see them fight again this season, I didn't really feel like it was needed. The kind of closure we got from that, with Marco and Mike and Andrea shaking hands after the fight, it was really lovely. And the other controversial bit was there's the Tantrum and Hydra fight, and they had their rematch, and it was a definitive win this time for Tantrum. So
yep.
The rule changes that came in as a result of those two fights as well, I feel like have added to the show. I think the show as a whole is much, much better this year. It has been much, much better this year. And I'm not going to claim any credit for it, but I feel like we have fixed BattleBots.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
It's funny because it's like a lot of the changes that they made in the off season, were the things that we wanted. I mean, the things that all the fans wanted.
Yes.
We wanted better rules, we wanted more balanced rules, we wanted the builders to get paid. We wanted genuine drama versus kind of manufactured drama. And I don't know, maybe that one's not fixed just yet. I guess we'll see. But they're all like cosmetic things this year versus kind of big structural kind of rotten things.
And we wanted it to be where the refs were not the deciding factor in matches anymore. And I feel like the rule changes really took the refs out of being decision makers of what happens when. Their job is very specific now. It makes a lot more sense. We can't throw them under the bus anymore, which is great. We don't even want to notice the refs. They should be the invisible zebras in the background who just make sure things happen, and that's it. And that was very much so the case all year this year, which I loved.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was thinking, like when we were brainstorming what we were going to do this year, we were thinking we would do something a little fun and just do hot takes. So like, I think like before we start, like maybe we define what a hot take is, okay?
Yeah.
Because some of these ideas that our fans sent in are cold takes. These are cold,
Very cold
okay?
takes. Very cold takes.
All right.
Yes.
Like I'm going to define hot takes, and I want to hear your definition of it too. But like hot take for me is, it's an opinion that you genuinely hold, okay, honestly with a pure heart, and that that some percentage, 10 or more percent of the fandom will disagree with you on and debate you on. So like for example, hot take is like Riptide is good, for the sport. We need Riptide for the sport, right? That's a hot take. I don't agree with it. Maybe someone else has that. I guess we're gonna have to see. But
it's out there now.
It's out there now. Just clip that, okay? Just put that up there. Okay, yeah, I said that.
Wow.
But like a hot take, like a non-hot take, a cold take is like, oh, builders should get paid for their labor. Okay, like everyone knows that. We all agree on that. I don't know. Maybe there's one sociopath on the BattleBots, Facebook group.
They should come to debt, and you should live in squalor to build robots for our entertainment. Come on now.
Right. So okay, so that's a hot take. Also, just very quickly before we start, we got so many hot takes. We got hot takes on YouTube, on Discord, on Facebook, and so what we've done is we've organized these hot takes into large buckets, and then each one of us is going to take one of these big buckets and kind of just guide us through and take out the spiciest takes, the stuff that we actually have opinions on. However, I'm going to just apologize right at the top. We're going to leave a lot of your hot takes on the cutting room floor because either they're cold takes or I don't know. Maybe we agree.
We'll be here for
with
3
them.
days. If
we'll be here for 3 days. Yeah, exactly. All right, good. And then quickly, do we want to do like a little round robin of introductions just in case you've never seen my face before and you're like, oh, I'm here to watch outside of the box. Who's this guy? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sam. How about you kick us off? Like can you introduce to yourself?
Okay, so for those who don't know, who haven't seen me before, I'm Sam. I'm from the United Kingdom. I know we do exist and we do still watch BattleBots over here sometimes. Yeah. I've hosted the RoboCast podcast now for nearly 7 years. We've covered all of all of modern Robot Wars when that came back, and all of BattleBots in detail since season 3. And I'm also part of the Two-Headed Death Flamingo combat robot team.
Love Two-Headed Death Flamingo. I've got the t-shirts. They just came in the mail.
Excellent.
I love them. Like the new ones, like the kind of like rock band kind of t-shirts.
It was kind of either a rock band or a brewery, microbrewery style. That was the goal, and I feel like we've Amy, the artist who did the work for us, she did an amazing job on them all. So thank you.
They're excellent. I highly recommend you getting yourself some, Two-Headed Death Flamingo drip. It's pretty great. And yeah, I'll have to check out the RoboCast. It sounds like a pretty good show. Yeah. 7 years. Wow, amazing. I'm joking, of course. Christine, how about you?
Sure. So I am Christine, although I'm positive that in all the episodes that I've done, I don't think I've ever said my own name on the show once. So, there's that. But I do Outside of the Box podcast. I've been doing that for just over a year now. Although I've watched BattleBots for 20 years, since it started, which makes me really old. And, I've been watching other robot content since I got introduced to it about a year ago. So, yeah, and I'm building a Beetle. So, yay.
Amazing. Christine, like you made your Robot Combat debut, like what, 6 weeks ago at NHRL? Like that was very exciting.
It was fun calling your fights.
Yeah, it was really cool.
I did, and accidentally made top 16.
That's perfect. That's really good. Yeah, I love that we're all like kind of we're all like semi builders. I don't know, Sam, you're like a real builder, so like that's.
I don't know. Let's not go there.
Kyle, introduce us to yourself.
So my name's Kyle Kroos. I am, as Chris so delightfully put it, the Winston Zedmore of the Behind the Bots podcast. Joined the team late, but and now part of the Big Four, I guess, on the team. And I'm an announcer at NHRL. I love combat robotics. I've loved combat robotics since I was in middle school, and been following the sport very closely ever since. And yeah, I'm currently in the midst of studying for the June 2-day extravaganza of NHRL, and that's consuming all of my brain power. So it'll be fun to talk about something else for a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. And similarly to Kyle, I'm also an NHRL announcer. My name's Luke. Yeah, I've been doing the show for like 4 years and really love it a lot. I was on Team Shred It this year for season 7. And it was a really, wonderful experience. I learned a lot, and yeah, just stoked to be here. So cool, very cool. Now, before we get into your hot takes, I mean, we had our own hot takes. I think we had like one each. I don't know, or else, yeah, this is gonna be like a 3-day show. Maybe we could go around, and we could like kind of prime the pump a little bit by like just sharing our own hot takes. And like the spicier, the better, Stan.
Well, I think you should start, Luke, because we put backwards to you to introduce
yourself.
Good. So you start off with the
with
the hot takes.
Good. Kyle, then I guess you're gonna go next, right? And prepare your hot take. All right.
Oh, I'm ready.
My hot take is that BattleBots Destructathon Proving Grounds is bad for the sport and bad for the builders. All right. So Proving Grounds, right? It makes sense on paper, right? There's not really a safe place for you to test your heavyweights. And instead of sending in like CAD files for some robot that's going to fail right out of the gate in their rookie season, you can get 4 or 5 fights in a weekend, test out your robot. No selection committee, right? Necessary. You just package up your footage from Destructathon, right? Send it to Greg and Trey and the other secret people on the selection committee. And then you get into the show, right? Makes sense? All good? No, terrible, bad, okay? Because they don't pay for anything. They don't pay for your travel. They don't pay for your shipping. They don't give you a build stipend. They're making.
You don't get a percentage of the door.
Right. Every single time they do one of those shows, they're making $30,000 in revenue. Now, I know that it's bleeding money. Okay, that's fine. But you deserve a cut of the door revenue, all right? Because you're creating this massive machine that if you don't get onto the show, it is a $30,000 paperweight that just sits in your garage and is a monument to your hubris. Okay. All right. Like it's awful. All right. I get that like the vision of the future is like, oh, you can just come and fight anytime you want. Right. And like we're fighting all year round and like you are on the West Coast or you're independently wealthy or whatever, and you can just come and fight. But like right now we are in a very awkward tweenage phase, all right, where we are not paying the builders anything at all. And we are back to exploitation by BattleBots. All right. Proving Grounds, I see you. And you're my hot take.
Ooh. Yes. Exploitation without what would it be? Like exploitation without representation? No, exploitation without exposure.
Yes. Yeah. You're exposed to 400 drunk tourists who like wandered in because the hotel concierge talked them into robot fighting. They didn't even see the show before. Okay. Yes. And then they're like, what is a I don't know, what is this family team doing here with this robot that barely functions? Okay. No, they've spent their kids' college education money, okay, for this horrible paperweight, okay, and you're never gonna see it ever again. Okay. It's awful. God. Okay. Do better, Greg and Trey. All right. That's my hot take.
It's a pretty hot take. I like it. All
right. I'll offer a riposte to that though.
Oh, good. Yes, Sam.
A bit of debate. So obviously over in the UK, we still have heavyweight live events fairly regularly. And it's kind of similar. A lot of the UK BattleBots teams use those to kind of test their robots. Surely it's better if you're going to build one anyway to have it tested and battle tested first before, as you said, turning up to BattleBots and then figuring out all the problems then.
How much money do the UK live people make off of the event?
Good question. I don't know. Ooh. I don't know the answer to that one.
Is there rolling around in Bentleys and Rolls Royces?
Well, I would say prizes for winning the event, or is there cash prizes for winning the show, or is there any type of?
There is a a nominal fee per fight per weekend. It's not very much. It covers petrol maybe for one person.
Now, Sam, I don't mean to malign the great, the great tradition of robot combat in the UK, but aren't your robots cost like $10? You know what I mean? You just drive it down.
For context, okay. I won't divulge too much, but we had for our heavyweight, which we have used now for 2 and a bit years in this format, we spent less than £3,000, about $4,000 for 2 of them.
And you can just drive there, right? Because the UK is the size of what, Connecticut?
It's still a long way to go a lot of the time. So it's at least a 4-hour drive to get to wherever we want to go to. But it's a long way to go to for not very much, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a lot less to travel for, let's say, a Northeast team in the US to go to Vegas. It's a lot less than that.
True. All right, cool. Kyle, what's your hot take?
All right, guys. So this is my hot take. Luke, you're aware of this hot take. I've talked about this kind of like while we've been chatting and whatnot in the past. It is similar to a joke we made earlier. I do think Riptide in some ways is good for the sport.
My God, Kyle, stop.
But this is the ultimate where I'm coming from on this, right? I do think that betting on combat robots is the future, right? I think that evolution of sports where you're talking about NASCAR specifically is one we bring up all the time. NASCAR started out with a bunch of drunks who were moving illegal alcohol across the United States and souping up these cars to get away from state officials, racing each other out in dirt roads and betting money on it and having a great time. And it's really just these at-home boy builders that were like figuring this stuff out. Eventually, they got betting, corporate sponsorships. Next thing you know, it's Kellogg's is sponsoring a car. It's like a whole different ball game now. BattleBots is in the transitionary phase of back home boys building stuff together and then competing with their friends and turning into that sport, that thing where you're going to have Kellogg sponsoring a car. Gambling is part of that. That's part of what turns a sport into a real sport. Big money sponsorships into a team is what turns a sport into a real sport. Does it get rid of some of that charming, oh my gosh, we all love like the beginnings of where this came from? Yes, absolutely. But also that's how you get cars that go 400 miles per hour and like can turn around corners on a dime and do amazing things and roll cages so that when people get into huge crashes, they don't die, right? It's those kinds of things that like fund the improvement and the betterment of the sport over time. So do I love where the sport is at right now? Yes. Do I relish what's going on right now? Yes. Do I cherish it? Yes. But I also understand we're going to have to start betting on this thing. We're going to have to start looking at those big sponsorships if we want this thing to grow and not just fizzle out and become a hobby thing. You know what I mean? And we're in a really great place right now where that is possible, as long as everybody plays their cards a little bit right. So
what you're saying is Ethan Kurtz is like the first of a new generation of the, builders in the sport.
Listen, this is not...
We're going to push out the wonderful Zach and Diana's of the world, of our community, and we're going to be replacing them with just
Zach
money
and Diana,
and profit focused.
No, Zach and Diana show up with 3 full chassis of completed robots. Like Zach and Diana are part of the thing too. They are very much so showing up with 3 fully functional robots with a bunch of different configurations, with a bunch of different parts on it. They're doing the same things. The difference is that Zach and Diana built their robot, whereas Riptide paid somebody else to build their robot, but they got to the same place.
I'm talking about Zach and Diana in terms of like, they're the shining example of our community, like coming together, loving, your competitors, helping them out, right?
Yes.
And there's 49 teams in the tent that are like that. So those are the dinosaurs, I guess, of the sport. Is that what you're saying, Kyle? In the future is
I hope that
fat Tony from the Vegas arm of the mafia comes down and says, hey, it'd be really terrible if you threw this next fight, boy,
a shady figure approaches you and offers you money to throw the next fight.
Shows you a photo of your child's elementary school,
I hope that their spirit lives on in the sport, but they're also contributing to this thing that we're all talking about. They're the ones coming with all of these different bots, all of these different configurations. They're the ones that are like, it's the levels of escalation that keep happening. They're a part of that level of escalation. You know what I mean? Scorpios gets better every single year. More Scorpioses show up every single year. They're a part of that entire thing. They're doing it. They're participating in it. Do I think it is a bad thing? No. Do I think I want a lot of that? This is a community and we love each other aspects to carry on into the future of the sport? Absolutely. But if it's going to grow, you're going to get more riptides too. And that's just something we all have to accept. That's good. That's the future. That's where we're coming from. And yes, we are going to be gambling on it. And that means with gambling, true, there is going to be cheating. There is going to be performance enhancing speed controllers. I'm not sure how that works with robots, but all of these things that are not allowed are going to be showing up in the sport too. That's going to happen.
Listen, I'm going to be long gone by then. All right, I'm going to be running a cooperative crochet podcast by then. Okay, all right. The community is why I'm here. All right, okay. Once we go to all Ethan Kurtz is all the way down. All right, I'm out.
I just can't wait for Behind the Stitch with Luke Stangl.
Good, perfect. Yeah,
behind the knots.
Yeah.
knots.
My God.
Yes, you nailed it.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. Christine, what's your spiciest take?
Well, the take that I have to use, because everything else that's kind of on my list is already in like the fan list of things. So I want to try and pick something that wasn't like heavily explored there. And so for me, my spicy take was that, this year BattleBots made this commitment to show every fight and show the entire fight. But there were a couple of matches where you're watching this fight and maybe it's not the most exciting, but then all of a sudden Chris and Kenny are talking about something completely different and it's very distracting. So while I understand that BattleBots doesn't want fans to like tune out and everything else like that, there were very few and far between matches that weren't super exciting. And I don't think that just like letting that ride is going to drive an immense amount of fans away. I mean, they can just go get popcorn or go to the bathroom while that's happening if they're not excited. Like I've heard different things about, like the sponsorships. Do you think that sponsors are going to be that much more excited if this robot is fighting and then all of a sudden the announcers are talking about something else? Like, I don't think that was good. And I would prefer that BattleBots not do that in the future.
Mm-hmm. As a Shreddit team member, I have to say thank you very much, Christine. That's true. I think our fight was like the first time that happened, and then it happened a couple more times. And I remember watching it. I was like, "This is not that boring, you guys. This is actually a kind of interesting fight." All right?
I know because we speak to Tim fairly regularly. He's a good guy, and I know they were pretty put out by the ominous Shreddit highlighting in a season where they don't highlight any fights. Like either do it or don't half-ass it. Like, just say, look, this fight happened. This is what happened in the fight, or show the fight. It's that easy.
Yeah, exactly. Like I thought that was better. Bad. I don't think that it added anything. Either do it the way that they were doing it before, or just show the fight. Like, don't talk over it. Don't go into something else.
Boring. Even say this isn't a good fight, but this is part of it. Go into these machines are incredibly complicated. They go wrong. This is the result of that. That would have been really interesting, but
Yeah. Sam, sorry, I need to piggyback. I'm gonna I think like that is one of the things that sets BattleBots apart from like places like NHRL. Like we could see a fight where two robots aren't operating, but like we can say something about it that actually like kind of drives your knowledge forward, where you're like, look, these are two brand new rookies. You probably haven't tested your robots before, and like this is part of their like improvement process, and like they make it feel like when you watch the show, like, oh, here's this robot that was really boring, and they went home and they worked on the robot for 4 weeks, and they came back, and now it's still boring. When like you could just like kind of show like the production side a little bit more, like, hey, look, this is a 1 week competition. This is crazy packed. You know what I mean? Like, I think like you can inject more of that tension into the show versus pretending like this is some live event that happens over the course of 2 months, you know?
Right. These guys had 8 hours to get this thing together, and that included ordering parts. Like that. This is insane.
Sam, I'm eager to hear your hottest take.
Okay, this might be a little bit strange for me to say. 2 bot teams is not good for BattleBots. I don't think that any one team should be allowed to have 2 entries in BattleBots, whilst there are others who are being told to not fight and being rejected. I feel like that's very unfair, especially with the field size now. The field size is now 50, and you've got at least 3 or 4 this year? Who was it this year? There was Seems Reasonable,
there was
Bots FC.
Bots FC.
Is that all of them?
Omega.
Well, technically,
and Omega as well.
Omega and Scorpios brought Dragon King.
That was exhibitions only. That wasn't in the actual competition.
I think that as a good alternative, if you're bringing a second robot, exhibitions / Golden Bowl only. I think that's a good compromise. I don't
and then maybe that bot could qualify the next year, but then you would have to choose which one you want to bring.
You should only be allowed to have one main entry and then have the second one as a side comp only robot, let's say.
What about my emotional support also dual robot team in Omega? Because I want them.
Yeah, it does suck because you would lose out on a Starchild or a Ripperoni, wouldn't you? But you'd lose out on a Tantrum or a Blip as well.
Yeah, and they're both wonderful. Yeah,
exactly. I feel like as much as I love both of those robots, it sounds crazy, but I would happily lose one of them for a new team. If
you're the production, you have that choice, though. Do you want to waste that spot on, and I'm saying waste with quotation marks, do you want to waste that spot on a new team or a not tried or tested something that might be terrible, or something that might not work? Like, let's just go ahead and say a Doom, for instance. Like, they showed up with a bot, it didn't work, okay. Or do you want... You know that the Bots FC guys are going to put out 2 quality bots that can perform, and so just let them do it. You know what I mean? Like, Hydra's going to show up with 2 quality bots that the Waiachi guys are going to show up with 2 quality bots that can perform. Just let them do it.
I will die on this hill. Okay, I'll die on this hill. That the future of the show, okay, is regional teams. You have like a UK captain, and the UK captain is now the selection committee for their area. They get to choose 5 robots from the UK or Europe or whatever, right? East Coast team, you get to choose your 5, right? And now it's 6 mega teams. Like, here's a Brazil team, right? And like Minotaur and Black Dragon are fighting together, and like we're gonna go into the Brazilian camp, and it looks like it's amazing. It's all Braziled out. You know what I mean? Like we go to the UK, and like there's just free tea and crumpets everywhere. For anyone that they want. There's a Florida team. There's a Northern California, Southern California team, and that is how you actually like root for a team, because you're like, oh, this is my Midwest team. Like, I am here, and I'm supporting my local people.
I will always have a soft spot for the Brit teams, the Quantums, the Betas, the Monsoons, as well, because I know them, and they are local to me. And I think you're right. I think there is an element of, okay, you need to have, in any sport, for the most part, there is always a team or a rider or a driver or whatever to root for. In your soccer teams, a lot of people follow specific football or soccer teams around the world, but then they will also follow specific players, and wherever they go, they'll then follow them. It's kind of similar to that, in a sense, where you need someone to cheer for, and you can cheer for your favorite robot. That's all well and good, but then if you have a team of, say, okay, I'm getting into like a weird phase here, but you can cheer for a specific group of teams. I really like those guys. They do this, that, and the other. I just my original point was kind of more like, I feel like if BattleBots are keen to keep the sport going, they can't keep looking inwards, because eventually they will run out of talent. And I feel like the reason why I feel like not having 2 robot teams would be better is because it opens up the umbrella a little bit more, and more people can come and play. I think that's the longer way of putting it.
It's because it's the difference between trying to book a competition that's going to last a long time and book a TV show where you're going to have good talent that are putting out a good product every time, and you can just trust in that. So yeah, I see where you're coming from. And we all want this to be more of a sport than a reality TV show. That's just, I think, bar none, what everybody who talks about this show wants.
Exactly.
No.
And Luke, that's an interesting idea. Although I would say that I'm definitely not like most people, where most of my favorite robots are international robots. So if there was a bot from the Midwest, like I would have no loyalties. I'm gonna root for the Brazilian bots or the UK bots, no matter what.
Yeah, no, and it's fair. I mean, like, I think one of the challenges is that, I mean, and it would move us toward a sport, because let's say you only had 5 spots, you got to choose 5 bots, you got to develop your own talent, you got to choose, like the teams that kind of come under your umbrella. Um, Maybe there isn't room for a Doomba or a Rusty or there on your roster, because now you only have 4 competitive bots, because like maybe once your vert gets knocked out, like you're out, like that vert is no longer in your deck anymore, and you see like these really hard trade-offs where people are like, oh wow, Minotaur's lost like four of its compatriots, and it has to continue to run Minotaur and run undefeated for another 4 fights in a row. Like that is really interesting. So yeah, I mean, like that's anyway. Yeah, and I would agree. Like I'm a huge fan of the Brazilians and the Brits. So yeah, maybe I wouldn't even, cheer for the East Coast. Who knows? All right, I guess we'll have to see. Okay, we're gonna jump into fan hot takes here. I'm gonna take the first section here, which is just around bot type and the meta. All right. We got so many amazing hot takes here. So I'm going to start off with like some specific to the bot type, hot takes. I want to read this one from Valkyrie designer Alex Crease, who himself runs a horizontal. And Alex's hot take is horizontal spinners in their current form are no longer competitive in this sport, which is interesting. All right. You've got big wedges. Everybody knows how to beat a horizontal, right? Ground game is just like it's become a fully honed, aspect of the sport. And with the upper deck, the shelf, it is really hard for horizontals to navigate. So horizontals are dead in 2023 and beyond. Interesting hot take from the designer of Valkyrie. Any thoughts on that? Are horizontals actually dead?
I would say Maximizer would disagree with you on that. Maybe at the heavyweight class, but in the lower weight classes, you're still going to see some horizontal robots that do a lot of damage and do a lot of good work. So yeah, I see where he's saying about it. In the battle box specifically, the shelf is quite problematic for that type of robot, but I don't necessarily think that's the case across the board. There are ways to win with a horizontal. We saw that at the last NHRL, and there are still some very effective bots with that design type.
I don't know about dead, because if we looked at Malice in season 7, Malice almost beat Minotaur, like very close to beating Minotaur. So I think a really dialed in horizontal can still be effective, but it's hard. It's not impossible, but it's hard.
I think a horizontal now needs ground game as well, right? That's the solution. If you look at Rotator over the last few years, this season just gone wasn't Rotator's best, but in previous years, it's lost to the eventual winner like pretty much every year, literally every year. They had, they almost beat Tantrum, but got ooted right at the last second. They almost beat Endgame, but their weapon died right at the end, and that cost them. There is a world in which you can do it. You just have to have that the annoying ground game meta that everyone else has to play as well. But it's harder to do that on a horizontal because of the geometry of the robot. And I think that Malice is doing good things with their fork setup. They're improving that as well. I think for the next season, Rotator, as I've said already, over the last couple of years, has started to do that quite well. I've seen a few Beetles over here as well start to do that quite well. So I think there is a route for horizontals to take. I think if the question was about full body spinners or shell spinners, I think they'd struggle a lot more. But I feel like horizontals, there's a way to do it. It's just it's incorporated the extra weight for the ground game, which they tend to struggle with quite a lot because all the weight to the weapon.
It's interesting because you're like if you're going to be entering with a new horizontal in season 8, like you've got to either know something that no one else does, or you have to have just an awful lot of faith in this design. There are times when I see a rookie show up with a 4-wheel drive vert, and I'm just disappointed. I'm just like, why? Out of all the things you could build, like you're gonna do this to us, like why? Like, bring something weird or different, like I'd love to see a horizontal win the giant nuts, in the modern age,
Yeah.
post Tombstone, of course. But yeah, interesting thought, Alex. The next ones I just laughed at so much because they just perfectly like capture everything, like around control bots. Francois Frol Peltier, a just a BattleBots super fan and really a thinking man's BattleBots fan. Says I really like control bots. I think they're more entertaining. And and then Antweight builder Kyle Cruffrey goes, the whole they focus too much on destructive bots. We need more control bots is just the I like this band before they were cool hipster shenanigans. Okay, so like if you like control bots, no, you don't. You're actually just a hipster. Okay, and then Josh Johnson said, I find seeing a top tier control bot get absolutely destroyed by a spinner satisfying. That is a hot take. That is a hot take.
Kevin Milcheski wants to know his location, I reckon.
Listen, I'm a Claw Viper fan all the way. Okay, for many different reasons.
What a great robot.
And if that makes me a hipster, then so be it, Kyle Cuffrey. Okay. I will ride on my unicycle down to my craft brewery, okay, and talk about how great Kevin Milcheski is until people are leaving. I love control bots. I think they are great. Some of the very best NHL bots are control bots, and it delights me to see them doing well. So
here's the question: is Kyle talking about Kevin Milcheski, or is he talking about Charles Guan?
Kyle.
Are we going there? Are we really going there? Choose your next words carefully.
Cracked it open, Kyle.
Well, I mean, that's what Charles's whole thing. Ban spinners. Get rid of the spinners. They're terrible. I only like control bots. And it's like, well, but Charles, your control bot could do better.
Have a much better robot to have that strong of an opinion. All right.
Amen.
That's what we're gonna say. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna have to look at Overhaul's like win-loss record. But in my head canon, it's low. All right. So yeah. Anyway, no, I want to see control bots like Claw Viper, fast, pushy, shovey, strong drivetrain, well driven.
That's the template, isn't it now, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
I want to see big dustpan style, like kind of like catching devices on the front, and just faster than anything you've ever seen. Like I really want to see
slams,
that.
lifts, and grabs and suplexes.
Yeah.
Like that's like I love a good suplex. If you can give me a good suplex in a fight, I am going to freak out. I will pop so loud for a suplex, way more than like a big shot with a vertical spinner. Like, don't get me wrong, roofings are fun. Everyone loves a good roofing, but I will scream way louder for a suplex.
I'm gonna come here and it was interesting. I didn't think of this as a hot take, but like a lot of people sent in hot takes around other weight classes and kind of like robot sizes in general. So like the Frank Jones wants to bring back super heavyweights. Okay, Frank, I agree with you. Let's keep going bigger and bigger.
No.
Drew Monteith wants to bring back 60-pounders. Okay. All right. Dylan Price. It would be nice if BattleBots would mention and promote the lower weight classes. Agree with you, Dylan. Okay. And Ryder Lee Engel, I feel like kind of sums this up really well. BattleBots doesn't need heavyweights. Heavyweights are a throwback to a bygone era where the only way to see BattleBots was with your own eyes, sitting in an audience in San Francisco and they looked like, ant weights because you were, half a football field away. And that it is ridiculous and silly and more probably ego driven that BattleBots insists on being 250 pounds today. And that they could just make everything smaller and run 30-pounders and it'd be a better TV experience. It's a hot take. I mean, like I have opinions about that, but it's certainly a spicy take, Ryder.
super heavyweights can get in the bin and stay there. I don't think they need to, like, as someone who has worked on a heavyweight team now for 5 or 6 years myself. They are so heavy. Like they take 2 or 3 people to lift, and if your back is ruined after a weekend of lugging it about. Supers are just not necessary. I don't think. I don't know about getting rid of heavies entirely. I think that's the wrong approach. Maybe a little bit lighter, like make people work with the weight a little bit more. So instead of 250 pounds, let's say 200. As much as you then reduce down you're reducing the weapon and the weight of the armor that you can use to defend against it. It makes people work a bit harder to try and get more into a smaller amount of weight, if that makes sense. So I don't know, maybe going a little bit lower, but not too much. I feel
from a filming perspective, you need to have bigger bots.
That was the other thing I was going to say. Was having a live audience is another thing where BattleBots, they ultimately make money from selling tickets to the show.
Yep.
And if you're turning up and seeing featherweights, yeah, it's cool, it's really cool, but you want to see the big boys in there. You want to see things go flying, and the energy and the sounds that they make is very different to a featherweight, in my opinion.
Wrong.
No,
absolutely wrong.
Come
Kyle,
on.
continue though. You're gonna dig your grave, Kyle.
No, from a filming perspective, you want to have, just to be able to have the shots that you want, the camera angles that you want, just the perspective and scale of the filming, you're going to want the larger arena. It's clear when you and this is, from working at an HRL, the 30-pound arena, the shots that you're going to get from there are not as cool as the shots you're going to get from the battle box. The scale is not the same. The size is not the same. You can't make the shots happen that you want to happen we have ridiculous technology in an HRL. You're not going to get as cool of a shot as you are in a heavyweight arena where you've got 42 feet to play with, 42 feet square. It's just way better as far as that goes. Now, could we do 125-pound robots in that size of arena and get just as good of shots? Yes, absolutely. But I think that when you're talking about getting smaller in size than that, in volume, just total volume of robot, it's not going to look very good on camera.
Oh, Kyle, you sweet summer child. Listen, okay. The difference between NHRL and BattleBots is that BattleBots has those cranes that they can kind of swoop in. They've got they've got aerial shots, and they edit it together. It takes them 8 weeks to edit a single episode. Okay, sure. All right, we're getting it live. I am telling you, I went and we've all sat inside of the battle box, okay, arena. All right, some of us have. Christine, you have, okay? Tell me the truth, all right? It's underwhelming when you're there because you're I can see this robot. It's so tiny. Okay, all right. You're so far away you can't hear Chris and Kenny. Okay, the robots they just sound like they're kind of dinking together. You know what I mean? And they cut it all together in post to make it sound amazing. Okay, but there's that experience. It's way more thrilling to sit up face to the glass on NHRL, watching a 30-pounder get roofed on fire, okay? And you'll see 7 or 8 roofings in a single competition at NHRL. It's the most thrilling thing you've ever seen in your entire life. Okay, same thing with Beetle. All right, you get a good flamethrower in there. It's encircling the entire box. Show me a flame that has a 40-foot long fire on it. Okay, I'm gonna be stoked. Okay,
I'm not talking about the live performance experience. The live performance experience at NHRL is phenomenal. Absolutely. I'm just talking about the filming. The filming is way easier with a bigger subject matter in a bigger arena.
We just have to email Austin, okay, and get him to get us 2 or 3 of those cranes, and we're in business. Okay, Kyle. All right.
Tiny little cranes.
This sounds to me like we're making our own BattleBots with blackjack and hookers.
Yes. I do want to share my final kind of weight class hot take from none other than Sable's captain, Giant Nut winner, Jameson Go. And this is truly a hot take. He writes, 30-pounders are too accessible. 250 pounds is interesting because there are few places that compete, and therefore people make mistakes. That is truly a hot take. All right.
Do you know why? It's because he is the runner-up, the current runner-up for the Golden Brett in the 30-pound division. Okay, that is not a spicy take.
Because he won BattleBots, he's happy now, so he's able to, he's going with this instead.
He would not have had that take last year when he was the returning champion from that division. Thank you very much. So no.
Too accessible. I love it. Now that is truly a hot take, JMO. All right, finally, I'm gonna dive into some hot takes around the meta, and then I'm gonna turn it over. All right. I've heard this a lot from a lot of people. Very, like Curtis Honeycutt from Bloodsports really sums it up well. The meta is dead. All right. 4-wheel drive vert. The era of endgame is over. Okay. Long forks, 4-wheel drive vert, dead. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
In its place, super flexible verts that are like that have tons of attachments and can like kind of really build out a good defensive strategy against a lot of different robots. Like the kind of it's not rock paper scissors anymore because I'm not a rock, a paper, or scissors. I'm like a Swiss Army knife. You know what I mean? That's the true meta. Like that is the Sawblaze kind of story on BattleBots.
Was it Jevan who called that lowercase modularity, not uppercase modularity where you're swapping out a whole weapon system, but lowercase modularity where you're like can reconfigure the entire shape of your robot to deal with different sizes of opponents or shapes of opponents?
It was funny in season 7. I just didn't see long forks anymore. Like if you had super long forks on your robot, it looked like a dinosaur in season 7. Like it's now all about like plows and kind of like big dustpans and stuff like that, which I thought was pretty interesting. But yeah, the kind of fork wars is no longer here. So yeah, the meta is dead. Let me see. Were there other? I mean, there were so many hot takes here. Ban 4-wheel drive verts. Okay, that's good.
That's not the
Thomas
answer.
Carroll. I agree. Sean Peterson had an interesting take. You can't have a fork or a wedge if you're not a control bot. Okay, so if you're a 4-wheel drive vert, you got to go in naked. All right, just
but then
weapon in front.
Would you call Hydra a control bot? Would you call? I mean, Sawblaze isn't technically a control bot.
It is technically a control bot. Yeah, so is Whiplash.
No,
Sam Elliott.
Sawblaze is a spinner. It's a spinner with a
Sawblaze. Sawblaze is the king of control bots, Sam. All right,
but it's a spinner. It's a vertical spinner. If you boil it, no, it's not. I'm joking. I am joking. but the point still stands. They still have big forks. So, and they have a spinning weapon. Does that make it a vertical spinner with forks? It can now operate as a vertical spinner, can't it? It can drive backwards and hit people.
I honestly think that Jameson Go could have won the Giant Nut this year without that hammer saw at all. Okay. But yeah, okay, good. And then finally, we should limit the number of verts. Like we should try and encourage more flippers, axes, hammers, crushers, and control bots. Samuel Grafthoff, Alexander Archer. Interesting thought. We need more design diversity. I agree. I agree. Maybe that is not as hot of a take as they think.
There's a graphic that Valkyrie do every year, which shows the top 16 weapon types. And this year, I think was it 11 vertical spinners in the top 16?
Yeah.
And then one of those was a combo, which I believe was Whiplash, which also has a vertical spinner on it.
Right.
One was a saw, which was Sawblaze, which it has a spinning weapon as well. I think yes, but I also don't think the answer is ban 4-wheel drive verts because they have their place. You can't. There needs to be the big bad, if you like, to kill, because otherwise there's no enjoyment out of it. Everyone loves an underdog story. Ripperoni beating Endgame this year was spectacular because it was Endgame has built up this lore of being unbeatable and has the ground game and gets under everyone and beats everyone. But when it goes wrong, and then they lose, it's even more satisfying because you can take more enjoyment from the underdog winning. So I don't think you should ban them. I think you should keep them, but maybe less of, or somewhat limit their effectiveness in some way. I don't know how you do that. Maybe a fork length thing, but as we kind of discussed, we didn't really see super long forks all season this year. It was kind of a different approach, like sort of the ablative fork fronts, where they kind of moved with the terrain.
Yeah, piano keys were a lot more common this time. It was interesting.
Exactly.
Sam, I'm going to turn it over to you and your next section of Hot Take.
Oh boy.
We handed Sam the spicy section just so everybody knows. So
I chose the spicy section. I live for it. So I'm starting off with the specific robot hot takes. And no one will be surprised to hear that the first robot we're talking about is Riptide. So, where do I want to start? There were a lot of hot takes with regard to Riptide, as I'm sure you can imagine. Starting off with Ryan Hunter, who said the focus on the drama of Riptide and some of the lesser side drama takes away from the aspect of the sport as compared to the show. Other people were saying, that they are here to stay, unfortunately, and we're going to have to kind of accept it. It's a load of nonsense coming from Johnny Cords. Other people, such as YouTube user Wolvie Zandalari, said the Riptide drama wasn't as bad as it was made out to be, and that they're betting by the time we come around to next season, everyone will have moved up from it.
Doubt.
I'm opening the floor to everyone. Christine, we haven't heard much from you recently. What's going on? What's going on with Riptide?
I mean, obviously, I have a lot of feelings about Riptide. I think it's really more. It's not as much with the team specifically, but it's a lot of the editing and kind of pushing that pretty heavily. And a big reason why I have an issue with it is because I've compared BattleBots in some ways from a production aspect to professional wrestling. And there are certainly those parallels. But the big key difference for me is that, when you're looking at the two, professional wrestling is a scripted television show. Yes. So when they're pushing these villain narratives, we're talking about like fake things that, these people aren't necessarily really representative of. With BattleBots, these are real people. So, I think that there has to be a little bit more responsibility in the way that narrative is presented. And I think like the Shatter stuff in particular was just really like, it turned me off a lot. I just didn't like it. I don't think that like having a team that is very energetic and super competitive is necessarily a bad thing. I think that there's some folks in NHRL that certainly have that kind of energy, but it's just different with Riptide. It seems more mean-spirited, and that's not representative of 99% of what BattleBots is. And so I think like pushing that to the degree that it was from a production perspective wasn't great. It might draw some fans to the show, but those aren't going to be the kind of fans that stick around. Those aren't the ones that have watched this for years and love it. That's my personal feeling on it. But I don't think that they're necessarily bad for the sport overall. And I hope that they learn some things from how things came across this season and come back and we see less of that drama and more of just that competitive spirit.
Mm-hmm. I mean, listen, I'll give you my hot take on BattleBots just in general, like kind of just the meta take, which is like BattleBots has this very clever sleight of hand where they kind of create this myth about themselves that like robot combat is a massive sport and hundreds of people are trying, like beating down our door to get in every single year, and these are the best of the best, and these are like we've rejected tons and tons of people, when the fact is that they basically accept everyone who has any kind of credible building skills whatsoever. And like the show, this multi-million-dollar show on cable TV is purely driven by the community. Like those 50 teams, they all know one another. They're all friends with one another. They go to one another's weddings. They go to one another's picnics. They are hanging out and they go to the movies together all the time. They're on first name basis with one another. And like they collectively agree like, hey, we're going to spend $4 million of our own money and we're going to come and basically like subsidize this TV show for our friends, Greg and Trey. Like they're friends with Greg and Trey as well. And Riptide is the first kind of like community kind of person to show up. Like they're not part of a community. They don't give back to the kids. They're selling their freaking poker chips for $75 each, right? Like they're not here to inspire anyone. They're here to win. And it's like I am like it's fine, but like when I look at them, I think of it's like you guys showed up on third base and you're convinced that you're like that you've hit a triple and that you've got there on your own. Like, you took the most dominant design from the Beatles. You didn't even come up with it on your own. You scaled it up, like you paid someone else to like figure out the physics for you, and you're here just shouting about how great you are, and it's like it's just unearned, and you're like you're jeopardizing like the foundation of your show, like this community of builders who are here to see their friends, not to get like um disrespected like on national TV by like somebody who just pays for everything. You know what I mean? Like it kind of shakes the foundation of the community, and you're like, why is that? Why are we jeopardizing everything that we've built this on just for the whims of a rich college student from Southern California? Like it's so yes, that's my hot take when it comes to Riptide.
It's interesting. The other thing I kind of wanted to bring up as well was there are from Will Hahn, who said there are now too many of those people who are saying big boom good, it's BattleBots not CuddleBots, and there are so many of those people. We've kind of commented on it before. Luke and Kyle, we've mentioned about how they all seem to appear at the same time and they all say the same kind of things. They're like, I want to see those robots destroyed. I want to see him in bits. I don't care. It's all well and good. We see that every now and then. It does happen. But generally, most teams have the kind of foresight and the planning to be like, okay, I know where not to hit because otherwise it's going to cost them an absolute fortune. Like the metalwork is all one thing, but seeing bits flying off, that's one thing. But the soft, electronics on the inside, thousands and like tens of thousands of dollars of equipment in there. If you start hitting them, that's when it starts getting problematic. And we don't want to see that. And hopefully we don't see that. Should we move on to another robot which has divided opinion over the years, which is not Riptide, we've already done that. Hydra. We've had more from Will Hahn.
Wait, just before we start,
go on.
Do you guys remember when all we were worried about were Hydra controversies?
Listen,
I thought that was going to be like the thing.
Cow catchers, right? Like driving style. Oh, he's not aggressive enough with the driving. Oh, like, wow.
I love the chaotic energy of the Team Waiachi podcast and those freaking Wisconsin dairy engineers. Okay,
what is going on?
When they go through Reese Stewart's phone, is the best thing they've ever done. Like, I want more content like that.
They are. It makes me love that team so much more watching that show. They're hilarious. Like, as a family, they are so funny.
These redneck precision machinists, these millionaires from Uttergun, okay, just out here, just creating memes every single time. They've done 10 episodes, and I guarantee they've captured way more online buzz than we have over the course of 400 episodes.
Oh, yeah,
right?
For sure.
100%. I love it. Okay, I am here for it. I'm here for the chaotic Waiachi energy. Okay,
100%. 100%.
Yeah, it does feel like a bygone era, Kyle. All right. And I love that they lean into it. Okay, that's such a weird family, and I'm here for it. Be weird, guys. All right.
Yeah, they're totally weird, and they're great. I love them. I want Reese Stewart to come on somebody's podcast that's not the family's, but the fact that we get to see him be ridiculous on that show all the time.
I don't think we do him justice. None of us would do him justice. He's just, I mean, he's clearly very uncomfortable talking to Chris and Kenny as well. Like that makes it even more funny because you can see that he hates it, but like he still delivers gold every time he opens his mouth. It's wonderful. A lot of what Will says is kind of comes from it being a floor seam magnet. It's likely going to be retired this season.
Heard that before.
Well, we've heard it before, but I mean, would BattleBots be a lesser place without Hydra in it? I'm going to say a big firm yes.
Yeah.
Regardless of if Jake comes back with his another robot of his design and of their design, I have no doubt it'd be excellent. And from what we discussed on earlier this season with him, he has a very good idea about what he wants to bring. But Hydra is just something special, and the fact that it's still delivering, it beats Sawblaze you know, the fact that beat Sawblaze, and Sawblaze obviously went on to win. You know, Hydra is basically unchanged in 4 years, and it's. I mean, I know Copperhead is as well, but Copperhead is, you know, was an absolute dense unit of a robot, whereas Hydra is just, you know, it's very soft and it has weaknesses, and we know they're very well, you know, documented, but he still delivers it, and I hope that for everyone's sake that Hydra sticks around.
I still believe that if it weren't for a frog on an upswing, Hydra would have a giant nut right now. Like if you
Really?
look at that, yes,
Stop.
That's
Yes.
a hot take. That's a hot take.
What?
You
if
reckon?
it wasn't for a frog on an upswing, Hydra would have a giant nut right now, because it would be Hydra versus Huge. You get Hydra Vert versus Huge.
Still got to get past Sawblaze again. I don't think it would have gone exactly the same way.
I think that Hydra has Sawblaze's number. I think there's no way around it.
Kyle.
It's happened twice now. They've beaten them twice now. Like, come on.
I mean, once.
But I know
Bonko
JMO, and I don't think there's any planet where he lets that happen another time.
Exactly. Yeah, Christine's right. And you know, what's to say that, you know, Huge has a solution for the Hydra? You know, Hydra's got a turn with that weapon, and it's the center of gravity.
Jonathan says he has a good plan for it. Yes.
I also would add in there, I think that Ribot exposed something with Hydra that nobody else had previously figured out, and that's, if you just don't drive up the front of it and make Jake make a move, then you can have some success. And so I think that, like, David did that brilliantly.
Yeah.
In my head, like, Hydra still seems new. Like, it seems like a modern robot. Like, I think it needs to have one more. And it got so far this season. How can you retire it when it went so far? Like, I get it if it didn't make the top 32, you know? But like when you look at like legacy robots that like barely make the top 32, like I think when Tombstone comes back, if Tombstone comes back, there's a good chance that it may not even make the top 32. That's when it's time to retire, you know. But like Hydra went far. Like what is it? Top 8, you know, this season. So yeah, I think it's got one more season in it. Will.
Hydra was lights out. I mean, I think that when you look at the season and look at Hydra losing to Tantrum and losing to Ribot, I think that if you get in Jake's head in some way, you have a much higher probability of success. And Tantrum was absolutely in his head, which is, I think, why he lost that. And then with Ribot kind of having that standoff, I don't think Jake really knew what to do, because people just don't do that. So I think that's kind of the key to success.
Yeah, we got to outthink him, which is hard to do because he's very good at getting in other people's heads. But if you Uno reverse him, then it's possible. Copperhead team member Chad New. Copperhead is now the #1 underrated robot. Is it a hot take?
It's rated. I'd say it's well rated.
That's what I mean. Like, you can't underrate it now because it's got a top 4. Although if you look at its path to that top 4, I suppose you can.
It doesn't. The Copperhead does not have the same kind of rabid fans that other robots have. Okay,
no.
Like its fans are purely, you know, they're very Colorado, both in like their kind of just like world view, you know, which is like, we're quietly confident, we do well, you know, like we've got a little weird streak, and you know, like we're here to win, you know, and it's reliability. Like that's the #1 thing. Like and their post-fight interviews are just very forgettable. Their pit entrances, like their like tunnel entrances, are incredible. But you know, like you gotta have like a Martin Mason or something on your team to like really kind of spice up those post-fight interviews. You gotta like, I think in general post-fight interviews are terrible. Like I think BattleBots should cut all of them. That's my hot take. Okay. I've never heard a post-fight interview other than Riptide. Oh my God, I've become a Riptide stan. Okay, where like it's generated.
Now there's a hot take.
It's generated any kind of like conversation or discourse afterward. You know, it's just it's a lot of like platitudes. You know, which is fine. I don't know. They all love each other, right? But like, say something. You know, like say something like really interesting or insightful. Like I want to see like the kind of deep insights there versus having them re-record them, ADR them in 2 months later, you know, with Kenny, like trying to pretend that, you know, he saw something in the fight that it was humanly impossible, to see.
Mm.
So I don't know. Love you guys, but maybe you gotta. Your reliability is holding you back, I think, as a team. Okay, the bot is too reliable. That's why.
There needs to be more jeopardy.
Yeah.
Next robot is Manta. Now
it's not even in BattleBots yet.
As of today, they've announced. Well, today when we're recording this, they announced that it's going to be fighting Triton at Proving Grounds, which is exciting. But Anthony Presnell, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. I'm really sorry. Says Manta wins the giant nut this upcoming season. That is a hot take, but it's a big ask. It's a big ask.
I like the builder. Nick Dobrikov is a great builder.
I like the robot. The robot looks fantastic, and it did really well at Robo Games. There's levels to this.
I want to see it take on Riptide because I feel like they're kind of like a journey is similar. I don't think the Nick's personality is at all like Ethan's, but like kind of the mega egg beater, super powerful, like well-driven robot is similar. But I don't know. I think you need a little bit of extra magic to win the giant net, I think, for season 8. Mm-hmm. I don't think we're going to be seeing a 4-wheel drive vert, just a basic box with a huge weapon win it all, next season.
I think it's a big ass, with respect to the robots that they beat, because they did beat big opposition in, Malice and Mad Catter and others, Terratops as well, obviously the infamous incident with Terratops. But they, with respect, Mad Catter has not got past the top 8 before. And, Manta clearly has shown, great potential. But when it fights a Witch Doctor or even a Huge or a Sawblaze, it's going to be a different story, I think. But I will happily be clipped up and be proven wrong. So the next one, I didn't expect this to be on the hot takes list, but it is Witch Doctor. We had an anonymous submission. Witch Doctor is a cultural appropriation and makes me feel icky. Discuss.
This is as a person who has done admin work on the BattleBots Facebook group for quite some time. This is not a new hot take. This has been around for a long time, both with conservative type folks trying to do a gotcha, as well as just people genuinely concerned about the issue. Kyle,
you're a resident Florida man, I feel like you've got probably the best opinion about this, right? I guess first off, do we have the cultural basis to even have this conversation? Maybe Kyle, you can kind of explain what a witch doctor even is,
Sure. So witch doctor would be a derogatory term meant to signify a voodoo practitioner or a voodoo priest, somebody who comes from a Creole based culture, right? We're talking about Louisiana areas as well as French Canada, Haiti, those types of communities. It is very much so what white people would call the practitioners of those religions in the past, and popularized in songs like Witch Doctor. Is it cultural appropriation when we're talking about it in terms of 2023? Should we be talking about religious groups and indigenous cultures that way? Yes, it is. There's no other way around it. It absolutely is. Is it appropriate? Probably not. Is it super problematic? I don't know. I don't know if it's super problematic or not. You would have to talk to people within those cultures.
What's the maybe for people who aren't from the South, what's kind of the equivalent kind of,
Well, especially since you're talking about a derogatory term for a religious leader, I'm not sure that there is. I'm not sure that there is. You know what I mean? Because there's no derogatory term for a priest. There's no derogatory term for
now I'm wildly trying to think of derogatory terms.
Yeah, it's actually a separate type of kind of insult than you would have directed towards other cultures, because it is specifically towards a religious leader in those cultures. So it technically
a religious minority as well.
Correct. Exactly.
Right.
So I do feel like it is somewhat inappropriate for sure. I still love Team Witch Doctor. I love Mike and Andrea. I don't think that they had bad intentions when they created the team or the theme or any of that. but I do think it's inappropriate. Yeah.
Maybe on reflection. I suppose, you know, it's hard to decipher really, but I think you're right. You know, from someone who's, you know, not massively familiar with the term, it's kind of difficult to understand it. But you know, I think it is a tricky one to decipher. And I suppose if BattleBots are happy with it, I guess it's fine. I'm sure they must have had to run it by a load of networks before, so I guess
no.
Do you think
so?
Do you think so?
There's no guardrails over at BattleBots, all right?
I should know better. I should know better.
they let the autism lollipop millionaire in. Okay, like what's going on there?
They did not vet that at all. They did not vet that at all. Like there was no vet. Like literally, Greg was surprised guys, when he found out it was being talked about on Reddit. So
everybody thinks that BattleBots is like this 100-person organization. They got like whole legal team and like, you know, vetting and everything. No, it's Greg and Trey. Okay, and like two interns. All right. Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, Witch Doctor. I don't know. It's I would be really curious to hear Mike and Andrea's thoughts on it. I mean, like I mean, like they're both from Florida. Like, you know, they're both from the South, and like I don't know. Like it's interesting. It's interesting. Huh. All right. Good take, anonymous fan.
Yeah, interesting. And certainly an interesting discussion point. The last robot we're going to talk about is Mad Catter. Ryan Hunter, who runs pit control or helps run pit control at NHRL, says that Calvin Eber would be untouchable on a well-funded team with a big sponsor behind him. Discuss.
Interesting.
I don't know what I'd say untouchable, just because Lynx has been beaten. But he would certainly be up there. I mean, he would be very difficult to beat.
I think given the budget that Mad Catter has operated on for the last few years, you know, respooling motors, using motors from back when they went to China in 2018, 2019, the fact that it's still, as they getting into the, you know, top 16s and still giving top tier machines runs for their money, there's an argument to say, you know, if Calvin had Riptide as an example, would he be winning the whole thing? There's a reasonable shout to say, yeah, he probably would. I don't know.
I mean, I've said it before, but you know, there's good drivers with bad robots and bad drivers with good robots. Every once in a while, you have a good driver with a good robot. I don't think Mad Catter's a bad robot at all. It's fine. But I think that it's maybe bad is the wrong word. Maybe it's like tuned to the driver's style. Like Calvin Eba has a very specific drive style in other weight classes, and Mad Catter's just not able to deliver that kind of performance that he really excels in. Like, you know, Calvin is not like a really big shovey kind of guy. Like he is a line it up and come across like at a diagonal and just hit you with the most force you've ever seen in your entire life.
Yep.
He's an incredibly precise driver. He's a fast driver, and Mad Catter is more of like a kind of drifty, kind of soft kind of like turning kind of robot. And it doesn't have those just like very precise angles that you see on Calvin's other robots. I mean, Riptide does have those angles. Like you see a lot of speed out of that robot. You see like a lot of those types of strong angles, which I guess would make sense given its design inspirations. But yeah, I don't know. Like I am eager to see Calvin's like heavyweight. Like I'm positive it's coming at some point. And yeah, I think we might see different types of performance, you know, out of him piloting a different robot.
Yeah, 100%. Right, moving on. I've now got the changes to the arena hazards and existing arena hazards issues, starting with, of course, the upper deck. The upper deck. Lots of people have kind of offered solutions to try and make it a little bit more maybe, you know, aesthetically pleasing. You know, Alex Hall said, you know, use it in those as triangles in the corners. Other people say they like the upper deck as a concept, but they should be smaller to open up spaces. From Joseph Jerebeck, I hope I've said that right as well. Michael Clements, I like his idea of the 10-second count-out should start as soon as the robot is put up there. I'm sure I've said that before as well. I think that'd be a really interesting, the floor is lava, you've got 10 seconds to get off, regardless of whichever way it is.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you've got to go back, and if the robot's waiting for you, well, unlucky, then you're going to get hit. You've been put up there, you've got to take some pain to get down. At the moment, it doesn't really feel like it doesn't really do anything different. Yes, it's texture and gradient to the arena, but like there's nothing. It doesn't offer anything as a threat. It's just a raised piece of arena. What do you guys think to the upper deck?
That was the original idea, wasn't it? Like as soon as you get up there, the countdown starts. Like you're out of the arena. Like I remember
there was meant to be like the whole lip was meant to go all the way around originally, wasn't it? And then they changed it to have you be able to just drive off the sides. You either had to go over the screws or it's I think Hughes was the only one who was able to actually drive off the sides, whereas now they've just made it so everyone can drive off the sides.
I've heard a story. I wasn't there, so I might be passing on bad information to our many, hundreds and thousands of fans. But from what I understand, originally, so like the upper deck was announced like 4 weeks before the show was going to start. So everyone had already shipped all their robots. They'd already chosen all their configurations. They had no idea the upper deck was happening. And BattleBots basically got all the builders, like they notified them, here's the upper deck, it's going to have this lip, right? And once you're stuck up there, it's going to be a 10-second automatic count. It was like brutal for the kind of like first iteration. And there was so much like just protests inside of the community. They were like, look, I don't even have like a configuration for this. I'm here for ground game. This is anti-ground game, what am I going to do? Like, I'm going to lose this entire season. Thanks for like having me burn $50,000. This was before they were paying the builders. And so they neutered the upper deck and like, it hasn't come back, Floor's lava is really interesting, but I mean, you can also do that with like just paint on the floor, like, oh, you enter this zone and it immediately triggers this kind of like digital display or something, I do really like the screws like being a little bit further out, but I mean, you could just put those in the arena too. I don't know, like it'd be kind of cool if you could drive behind it, like, and really kind of
have like an island in the middle sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, to Alex Crease's earlier points, I mean, like, it just kills horizontals as a type. Like, it's no longer rock paper scissors. It's like, gun, cupcake, like, I don't know, textbook. It's weird. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard, like, that was a hard topic for me. I talked about it a lot in my interviews after last season, and I really dislike the idea of something that gives a significant disadvantage to one type of robot and no one, not a lot of the other ones. I think it should be fair all the way around. So like, if you're going to do something, it should have the same effect no matter what type of robot that you have. Because that diversity that we're talking about, it inhibits that level of diversity because people are going to be discouraged from making certain types of robots due to this specific hazard. So like, there needs to be some other way, I think.
Or if you want to discourage all of your robots becoming four-wheel drive verts, then like create an arena hazard that counters four-wheel drive verts,
like a pit
versus like a pit. That's an interesting idea, Sam. Like, have they ever done that before? Like,
it's un-American, Sam. I don't like it.
I actually a lot of people asking about pits and saying, we should put pits in the battle box. I'm reluctant to say that doing that because I love Robot Wars. I grew up watching Robot Wars from when I was 3 years old, but BattleBots is a bit different, and I don't think a pit is the solution.
Correct.
Sam, nobody loves Robot Wars because of the pit. It's not like people are like, oh my god, there's a show with a pit. Oh my god.
The pit affects the design.
I'll tell you
why
the
pit affects the design meta. So I see where Sam's coming from.
No. Sam, the reason why they love Robot Wars is because each one of those little English builders, okay, they look like you and me, okay? They look like people who built something in their garage and came there with their kids, okay? They don't look like an F1 race team that of like super geniuses. Okay, they look like mail carriers and like gas station like owners and stuff like that.
But
that's why they love that scrappy show. Okay,
that's another good point. So my thing is, if you had a pit, for example, it then offers a Hail Mary to a robot losing a fight.
Yes.
And I love that. You could be getting absolutely trashed. The whole fight, your weapon's broken, you've got 2 wheels hanging off.
Yeah.
But you can go for the pit option. Maybe don't have it for the whole fight. Have it as you can have it after a minute or 2 minutes, like the kill source, which we'll get to a little bit later on. But I think the option of, okay, it's an auto win, but you have to wait for it and you have to take all this punishment first. It's then an option for you. It doesn't have to be a all the fight round option. But I feel like if you're, who could we use this season as an example? Like, let's say, I don't know, Lockjaw, when it's getting trashed by Witch Doctor. If they'd have kept going for another 30 seconds, a minute, whatever, the pit becomes available. They push them down. Oh my god, what an upset! That's for me. That's there's art in that, but maybe I'm just weird.
It would certainly generate more controversy than the upper deck.
Yes.
The upper deck, like the controversy is about the upper deck. It's not about the fight. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh wow, this robot was losing and it managed to nudge its opponent, the super dominant robot, down into this pit and immediately win. Like, people hate that. Okay,
I feel like people would like that. I don't know. I feel like the shakeups would be unbelievable. Like you'd see things like Claw Viper maybe winning the championship because it can outdrive everything.
Yeah, change the meta in a different way, like probably a more beneficial way. Right now, the upper deck just changes the meta, and that making the dominant like robot more dominant than before.
Yeah, which was such a bad idea.
Right? Why do that?
Yeah.
Why indeed do that? I'm trying to look if there's any more upper deck things we kind of want to cover. I don't think there's anything major to kind of like Carl Cuffrey, he said about incorporating terrain, which a lot of people wanted to do, but there's no real he said add a lip back on because that's what there was originally. There's no real jeopardy to it. It's just there.
Whenever people say terrain, I always imagine them just backing a dump truck in and just
put a little gravel
sand on the floor.
Yes, that's what
I would actually be okay with just make little mounds of different material throughout the battle box. Like a little dirt mound, a little gravel mound, a little sand mound. I think that'd be great.
My dream is that there are like 10 battle boxes all over the world, and every single battle box is different. You go to the UK, you've got your pit battle box, right? You go to Las Vegas, you've got your slot machine battle box. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, right? You hit a big button and like it starts to spin and then something pops out. I don't know, right?
Is this like different Pokemon gyms around the world? Is that like kind of how you're envisioning
yes, exactly. All right. And so for you to be the actual international winner, you got to like build a robot that can defeat all of these, these gyms,
And you go to the super battle box on the moon.
Yeah. Less gravity battle box. Okay. Yeah.
Has to be like 90 foot tall to accommodate Hydra's flips.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Gosh. Yes, BattleBots on the moon was faked, but we filmed it on location.
Let's talk about changes to the arena hazards.
Get rid of them all. Just throw them out the window.
No, come on now. Come on now. Perfectly smooth, no divots in the floor, nothing. Just a plain box.
Yeah, I want Endgame to win every fight. That's all it is,
That's literally what it would be. Let's start with Honroy. I'm gonna go with that. The screws are pretty much the only arena hazards that perform their advertised function, since the saws only add some movement variation with either fork catching or driving disruption, and the hammers are more a control tool, as we've seen in multiple fights, over the last couple of years. People holding people in place and then running away and spinning up, things, that kind of thing. Seth Schaefer from Bloodsport. BattleBots would be way better for control bots and more entertaining if they added an arena spinner on the side of the arena, so people get pushed into them, and then control bots have that way of damaging their opponents. Let's have a quick look.
Put that right in the blind corner on the other side of the pitch. Just make things real chaotic. Let's go.
Here's the reason why I love that. It's because right now we do not have a floor is lava kind of thing where it's like, I do not want to be in this little 8x8 square.
Yeah.
And like, if you could show, hey, Cloud Viper can consistently get their opponent into this kill corner, right? Like, and you're just waiting for it. Like, can they get over there? Like, can they shove them into that corner? How much control do you really have? Like, they talk about control, but it looks like chaos because you don't know what is going on in that driver's head at any moment inside of the fight. It's not like, oh, these are the actual strong kill saws or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, this is the actual death zone, and if you're in there, that means you've made a terrible mistake. I think would really just make it so much better.
Jeopardy, punish driving mistakes, that kind of thing. That would be just excellent.
How about this idea? We take like if you're a BattleBots champion, we take your weapon or a facsimile of your weapon and put it in one of those corners, right? So there's a tantrum weapon corner where you just get shoved into it and you're just getting punched by a spinner over and over again. You got a tombstone weapon corner where you're just getting shoved into the tombstone bar over and over. I love that idea. That would be hilarious.
Gets assimilated into the arena every year. That'd be pretty cool. I have to shout this one out because it's my teammate. Craig Croucher, the kill straws should kill more and be active all fight. 100%. But don't see why they're not. Like, there's at the moment you don't really get to see them unless you go to the judge's decision, and not many fights do go that long anymore.
Yep.
I love the contrast of the kill saws have got to go from Heather Stringfellow. I'm not sure about that one. I quite like the slots are there. Alexander Archer says the same thing. Again, I'm inclined to disagree on that one. I feel like the kill saws are kind of a necessary evil to stop all of these super long forks that we talked about earlier on.
Do you like the kill saws or do you like the slots? Because those are two different things.
I will offer you one fight that only needs to exist to justify the kill saws, and that is Petunia versus Rotator. And if only it happens one more time ever again, I'll be satisfied because, Petunia had Rotator, they did it specifically, they put him over the kill saws, and they shredded the wheel off, and that's all you need to see. May not happen as much anymore because of the, Brazil wheels is kind of more commonplace now than, you kind of off the shelf, cart wheels, which a lot of teams are used to use. But I don't know, it's like, when the sparks go as well, it's just all very pretty. I don't know. I like the kill saws.
It's designed for the spectacle,
Yeah.
And like I've talked to builders before where they're like, just we hate them because they're just a random factor in your fight, right? You're, like you can lose a fight because there's this tiny little slot in the floor.
Well, it's wider now because they have sparks.
Right. Yeah.
Endgame was a championship robot until they added sparks.
Yeah.
Charlie Hubbard says the battle box would benefit from a floor flipper to break up the ground game meta.
No, Charlie, they already have a floor flipper. They have two of them. They're right in the center of the battle box. They break them out for rumbles, which we don't have anymore, and they never run those stupid things, which sucks because I love the floor flippers. Bring them back. Go back and watch some of the original seasons of the reboot. Those flippers are active during the rumble fights. They're fun. They add chaos to the event. I love them. Every time I talk to somebody at BattleBots, they're like, oh, we hate those stupid things. We're never going to use them again. And I'm like, well, why? They're amazing. Like, it's so much fun. So, yes, I agree with Charlie. Not that they need to add floor flippers, but just turn the things on. Just turn them on. In the last minute of the fight with the kill saws and everything going, just turn them on. More chaos. Like
the last 30 seconds, like all the arena has to just turn on simultaneously, and it's just
That's
like
what I want.
Pure carnage ensues.
Absolutely. If we're gonna go to a judge's decision anyway, let's make it fun. Like, come on. No, the floor flippers are there. They exist. I believe it's actually like in the BattleBots logos in the center of the arena is where they kind of hide them, but they're there. You can actually see the scenes for them. They still exist. They just don't use them.
Sad choices. Christine, over to you.
Talking about rules, which is something that after World Championship 6, I was like insanely passionate about and recognized the need for so many changes to the rules. there were 4 fan submissions, and I very much disagree with 2 of them. And there's 2 of them that I think are kind of interesting. So the first one was submitted by Robert Webb and says, all teams should be allowed to request a rematch if they are not happy with the outcome of their fight. There was a little caveat there and said all rematches should take place in Final Destination, no items. I very much
Fox
disagree with this. Very much disagree, and I will tell you why. The whole match steward role was added to negate the need to have rematches. After having talked to Mike about this and having him break down, some of those decisions and those reviews, it makes complete sense. Like, this is a solid thing to review the match and make sure that nothing was missed. So I definitely don't see the need for a rematch in any situation. And I think that this just invites situations where somebody's like, I lost, I'm not happy with that, I want a rematch. And we don't need that. I don't think that we need that. I think that the judges do a fine job. And just in case they miss something, that's what the match steward is for.
Or I could introduce an encore thing like NRHR used to have.
I'm glad we just quietly got rid of that.
Bring it back.
It technically
Cowards.
still exists. It technically still exists.
It technically still exists, but we don't do it anymore. And...
But this is the way that we find the true diehard fans. People who've been
I've been
with us for years. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
yeah. They'll yell it out in the crowd, and we'll look at them and be like, "No,
please don't."
We stopped doing it. Kyle, remind me, we stopped doing it because someone was dominating a fight, and they called for an encore because it was super exciting and they wanted to see more destruction. And the robot that was dominating ran out of juice in those final 30 seconds and then ended up losing.
It was a sweet fight.
Felt so terrible about it that the announcers, because we are the ones who call for the encore. We hear the audience calling for it, and then we decide whether we're going to call for an encore. They were going to give us an encore button at the very start of when we started.
Oh, we had one. We had an encore button.
And after Joe was like, "Hey, this is what happened," I felt so terrible about it that I've never called for one in 2 years now. So
I never want to be the reason somebody loses a fight that I have nothing to do with, and that felt terrible. That felt absolutely terrible. So we've just quietly decided that we're just never doing that again.
Just park it. Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
It is still technically in the rules, though.
Yeah.
It's still technically there.
I'll remember that for 2 weeks' time.
When they eventually replace us with true chaotic announcers, okay, you're gonna be seeing encores all the time. All right, it's
you're gonna see encores, and they're gonna be chugging Prime Energy drinks while the encores are happening, and telling us all to like and subscribe. It'll be great.
Excellent.
So the next one is from Ryan Stanford and says, I would like to see the 3-minute timer go away if the competitors choose and just fight till both bots are counted out. I don't like this. And the reason is because you potentially could have a situation where you have 2 bots that are just kind of crowd walking around the arena, not really doing anything. And that's not enough to get counted out. And it's going to be really boring and nobody wants to see that. So, I think that you can have too much of a good thing, and just 3 minutes is fine. 3 minutes is actually a decent amount of time. And I think that that's perfectly, acceptable to keep with that timer.
I have a compromise, Ryan Stanford. Okay. All right. You should have a button where you can just add time, you if you're a builder and you want, but both builders have to agree, we're going to put 30 seconds on the clock. Do you want 30 seconds? Okay. Yeah, we're going to put 30 seconds on the clock because we're having such a good time. It's really close. We want to keep it going, give the builders that option and just keep adding more time. You know what I mean? And then
the only thing I think that wouldn't work with that is batteries. And I think everyone kind of calculates, okay, I need this much battery life to last for the entire 3 minutes of the fight and no more, and I think when it gets to 2 minutes 30 and someone says, hey, let's do an extra 30 seconds, and one team's like, ooh, battery's going to be a bit sad after this fight, and batteries tend to be the thing that go up in flames quite easily. So
there's no other combat sport where that happens. There's no other combat sport where the two people are beating the crap out of each other and one of them could be like, I need 45 more seconds to beat this guy down. Like, no, that's not a thing.
It's like teeth hanging out,
The timing exists because the fights are supposed to end when they're supposed to end, and we need actual rubrics and metrics of like who won what fights in that time period. If you start messing with how much time each person has, then you start getting asterisks, right? Oh, this team has this many knockouts, but some of them were after the 3-minute mark. Like it becomes a whole separate game. It's I don't like it. No, don't do it.
Are we a sport, or are we like a fun thing that we do as a hobby, Kyle? Okay, like are we spectacle or are we sport? All right.
Are we human or are we dancer? I don't know. Listen, I think that we're trying to be a sport here, okay?
Yeah, all right, that's fair.
Yeah.
So the next one is for Mario Cast and said that BattleBots needs to balance the points awarded from damage, aggression, and control so that no one meta has the advantage.
We do that at NHRL.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, I mean, I agree. There are bots that certainly aren't going to do as much damage, but that doesn't mean that they haven't, done their part in the fight. So I do think that is an interesting proposition.
I know over here in more recent events in the UK that, who's judged on NHRL, Ryan Bratley's judged a few events now, I think more than one, has kind of started developing a bit more of a matrix for weapon effectiveness instead of damage. I know that came from BashBots originally, the online show, and has kind of been adopted over here for actual events. And at the same time, if a spinner is dominating for most of the fight and is causing more damage and is being bullied around, then it's still going to come to the same result. But there is that chance where they get a few nicks and it's not to the same level as being carried around for 2.5 minutes and you get a 30-second rally at the end. It does provide a viable strategy outside of having a big spinner to win. I think it'd be interesting. I feel like one aspect does need to have, maybe, especially for a TV show, you need to have that kind of, you need to see something happen. You can't just, having a big wedge block is kind of what BattleBots used to be 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And doing that is all well and good, but there needs to be something, where it's going to cause excitement. It's going to see sparks flying. You're going to see bits flying off, whether that's being, the one causing that to happen or forcing your opponent to do it to themselves. I think that has to be the kind of balancing point. I think there does need to be a slight bias towards damage in that sense, but I don't know. It's again, it's a hard one to balance because is it a sport? Is it a TV show? Is it entertainment? Etc. Etc. Etc.
One thing I'll say is it's definitely BattleBots, not CuddleBots. All right.
I'm going to reveal something here, and I hope that it doesn't change your thoughts about me. Okay, I'm all down for damage and control. I don't really know I know what aggression is, but I think we could take it out. Okay, like I think we could just do damage and control. Okay, aggression,
especially in BattleBots,
because it's like the weird, like kind of like a middle ground where you're like, oh, okay, wow, there's a lot of damage. Maybe we can give some of it to aggression.
Especially in BattleBots, where aggression is your weapon usage, which is like, well, isn't that damage? Right. Isn't that the same thing?
Yeah. Just
not really though. Because Whiplash,
who's more damaged and who showed more control? That's more binary. You know what I mean? Like, we could maybe do away with aggression. All right, what's aggression really? It's too gray. Okay, for me, like I want black and white.
Yeah. No,
I would also argue with the damage part of the argument is that the reason why I've always had questions about damage is because for me, when I'm watching a match, I always want to give the advantage to the robot that's doing purposeful things. And when it comes to damage, there are situations where you can just get lucky shots where you're not trying to damage the robot necessarily, where it just happens naturally. And that's not purposeful. And you're going to get damage points, even though you weren't actually trying to do the damage. So, that would be my argument for saying, hey, maybe they all should be even because that's a thing.
Yep.
So That was what I thought about that one. And then the last one is definitely a very highly like debated thing that I've seen over time. And that's talking about adding tap outs to BattleBots. Which, NHRL does have the tap out button. And I think that I've always been on the side of not doing that for BattleBots. BattleBots, they don't do that. It's not a thing. But there's never been a situation until this past season where you've had a team that's being overly aggressive and not really abiding by kind of the code. So like, is that necessary for a situation where a team is not following just that like unspoken code that like everybody else abides by?
Tap outs are for the combat robot hipster. Okay, all right. Like you can see it's like the same as like soccer, Sam. All right, I'm trying to connect with you on a cultural level. Okay, like when
they
you see
football,
we do.
It's all right. Listen. You're wrong, but it's okay.
Wow.
When you see a 0-0, 3-hour soccer game, okay, like the true hipsters will say like it's amazing. Oh, it's so wonderful. That's what the tap out button is. Okay, like it's a 0-0. You know what I mean? It's like the only reason I tap out works at NHL is because we're doing 25 fights every hour. Okay, like they're doing 7 fights over the course of 2 hours with ads. Okay, like oh wow, 45 seconds to this fight, somebody tapped out. Terrible for the Discovery Channel. The show would get canceled. Okay.
Yeah, like, for us, it's fun to yell, oh my gosh, that's a tap out. He gives up. He's done. He's out of here. Like that's fun, but it would be the same thing.
But you got to follow that up with 20 more fights. Okay. Yeah. All right. So people are going to be tuning out.
Yeah.
I think ultimately the real elephant in the room is it shouldn't be needed because 49 teams this season did a good job of, not laying into their opponent when it's dead, and one didn't. But should we accommodate that one team by having a tap out button so that they absolutely know when to stop? Maybe, but it hasn't been necessary for 6 years up to this point. Why suddenly now?
By the way, to all of the it's not BattleBots, it's CuddleBots people who are screaming, you shouldn't need a tap out button because these bots should be destroying each other. And if you don't destroy each other, you're not doing your job. You're not entertaining me. I want you to go back and watch the Gigabyte versus Tombstone fight where Ray Billings is laughing menacingly and yelling, "Stop moving, John, or I'm going to have to kill you." It's good sportsmanship. It's terrifying. And it's great TV. Like all of these things exist. It can exist simultaneously. It doesn't have to be a black or white CuddleBots versus BattleBots situation here.
The CuddleBots mouth breathers, okay? Like the whole reason why they say that is because they believe erroneously that all of these teams are sponsored by Coca-Cola and Chevy and the whole thing, okay? Yeah. If I had a $200,000 budget and I had 9 robots back there, absolutely every single one of our fights are going to go the full 3 minutes and you're going to see the worst destruction in your entire life, okay? And that's what people assume when they say that. They're like, these are highly funded teams. I saw the Viagra ad that ran right before their fights. They must have got a cut of that money. You know what I mean? They do not understand that like BattleBots, the teams, they all roll out of the tunnel like looking the same basically, but their life circumstances and their team finances are very, very different.
Yeah.
Because BattleBots does a terrible job of like telling that story, like of creating those stakes. Like they take out some of the emotional stakes from the story because they are so focused on we are a real serious sport, right? And they are missing these like really big emotional beats that you could tell in the story that are really interesting because like we all have to wear suits and we have to like make it seem like it's boxing and the whole thing. And we're here in Vegas and our opening shot is this like huge shot of millions of dollars worth of casinos and stuff like that. It's a choice. And I just, I don't necessarily agree with that choice. But yeah, so like, you watch it and you're like, Kyle, you don't actually, all right. If I was to actually press you on this, you would agree with me. But like this fake narrative that they've created of like this is a real sport and it runs for months and months at a time and these are all highly paid engineers and like there's huge amounts of money in the sport and the whole thing. Like of course you're gonna look at that, and if you're not that bright, you're gonna be like, yeah, of course I want to see total destruction every single time.
Yeah.
Like, why are they holding back? Like, it's Coca-Cola's money. It's not yours, like go for it, Yeah. It's like when you watch a crash on NASCAR, you never feel bad for like the team's finances. You're just like, oh, I'm sure they've got another car, like it's not coming out of the driver's pocket,
Right.
Yeah, stuff to think about. So moving on from changes to the rules, we're talking about changes to the show. And there's definitely a lot of these, so I'm going to kind of highlight some ones that I find interesting. So we kind of talked a little bit about this earlier, but Sawblaze team member Eli Davis said, recording match commentary after the fact and pretending it's live is bad. Pretending the Golden Bolt tournament is months after the main tournament is bad.
Yeah.
I would agree, and mainly because most of us know we're not fooled. Like most of us that watch the show regularly know all of this. So to even pretend that's what's going on is just makes no sense. Like I think that it actually hypes up more to be like, hey, here's the end of the giant nut, and then we'll have our like continuation of that season for the Golden Bolt like a few months later. I mean, I think that actually creates better hype.
Yeah. Yeah, it is the one aspect of, we were comparing kind of BattleBots to professional wrestling. It is the one aspect where BattleBots tries to maintain some semblance of kayfabe, where they're like, oh yeah, this is months at a time that these things happen. And the season's shot like every weekend we're putting a new episode together. And like, it is very strange. I do think that there's a lot more stakes to say, hey, the Golden Bolt tournament is happening literally the week after the main tournament happened. Everybody's tired. Everybody's exhausted. Their bots are worn down. They have nothing left to lose. They're probably not bringing this version of the bot next season. That's why you see some of the best fights in that Golden Bolt tournament, because you see them on their last legs with nothing left to lose, and they're going to like put on a really good match.
Win or bin it.
Yeah. And they never mention it. They never mention it. And it's like, but it's so clear if you know what's going on that's what's happening, and it's cool. They never mention it. It's sad.
I'm gonna say, like, it feels like to me like BattleBots does not have like the confidence that it needs to like show you behind the scenes. Like for them, they worry that like if I show you how small the show actually is, to show you how small like the production is, it's only 2 weeks, right? We're going to turn off viewers. And I think like the flip side to that is like we're all super fans, and so like we love that stuff, and like they are building it for 950,000 non-super fans, and for the non-super fans, like they're watching this because they kept the TV on for too long while they were cooking, and they're like, oh my god, they're fighting robots on TV. You know what I mean? Like, but I mean, like, I feel like when the super fans get together, like we envision this show that's very different than BattleBots. Like, it is a show that is much more kind. It is a show that is much more about the builders themselves than about the robots. It's like, we're going to go into your shop and we're going to take a look at like the design decisions that you made, and like we're going to kind of follow your entire season because you're a builder outside of our show, and like we're going to take you into the pits and we're going to give you lots of supplemental content, and like we're going to show you like the real kind of like mad dash to get your robot through this one hellish week. Like we're going to send TV crews home with you so you can see your squalid Airbnb conditions, and that you're getting 2 hours of sleep in, but like you need to have confidence in your concept to do that, and like as super fans, we obviously feel confidence in that, but I think that there's probably something to be said for like the show doesn't exist without, or the show in its current form on Discovery Channel, doesn't exist without the mouth breathers watching the show, and like they're the real audience.
Yeah.
There is another take here, one that I really like from Horizon team member Alex Price, that cutting out intros for some fight makes sense, but don't cut out all of a team's intros because it undermines the time spent by everyone involved, the teams, Farouk, etc. And basically that it's, the same idea as a wrestling promo, that if you don't give the teams a chance to like have fans see them and, you know, get to know them and stuff, then fans are never going to latch on to those teams. And I agree that, like, yes, if you heavily promote like all of the top teams that all the fans already like, then none of the other teams really have that much of a chance. It's a lot harder for them to gain a fan base if they're not being seen.
Yes. Yes, I agree with that.
It's unfair as well because, you know, when we spoke to Luke Quinn from Copperhead, like he was kind of explaining about how last season 6, you know, it was Robert Cowan as the team captain, and you know they had of their 4 fights, they only had 2. All of his interviews were cut, and their 3rd fight was highlighted anyway. So they got literally the least screen time out of every team in the building, and then they didn't do bounty hunters because they were the last fight in the round of 16, and that was their season. You know, they spent all that money, all that time, all that effort for not very much, you know, in terms of, you know, content or whatever else. So, you know, ultimately, you know, everyone who goes on to BattleBots wants to show off their work on TV. You know, it's a great advert for themselves. If, you know, even in a professional sense, you know, you can put it on your CV and say, "Hey, I've done this. Hire me." That then also kind of limits, you know, if you're limited in what you actually appear on TV, your screen time is quite low, then none of your personality gets across. You're limited in that sense. You know, lots of teams, like your Hypershocks of the world, brilliant, you know, selling themselves, and you know they get a lot of screen time because they are wonderful on camera. They are, you know, big personalities. Not everyone is, but you know, everyone kind of needs to have that kind of in to be like, okay, this is who we are. Look at us, and they need to have that kind of moment in the sun, basically. And you know, not everyone does get that, as we've seen this year. You know, Horizon, you know, I think had I can't remember if they had a intro cut or, you know, an interview cut here and there, but they probably did. You know, they had obviously 1 fight win, so they only got 1 post-fight interview basically, and a lot of their screen time was limited into just Horizon's here. It's been beaten by Monsoon. Great, you know, well done. That team, you know, they've got so many interesting people on that team who make cool things. You know, the robot itself is incredibly cool, but we don't get to see it because it is different.
And the thing I love about BattleBots too is that like these weird little things happen with the teams that have no context. They never bring it up. Like Alex was wearing a taco hat, you know, like for you know, the entire season because that is their self-writer, right? It's a
Looks
taco.
like a taco. Yep.
And it's like they didn't say anything about that. Okay. It just looked like somebody out there like a lunatic wearing a taco hat. Okay. Same thing with Copperhead, right? You know, like we've got Clyde Magnuson, like for 2 of their 4 fights out there. And it's like, who is Bob the Builder? Like, you know, like they don't even bring it up. It's like I wore this whole costume, you know what I mean? And like and you've neglected to bring up any of my team lore whatsoever. It's just like every once in a while you just see somebody who's got a great outfit on, and I don't know. Like there's
I think that Clyde would be very offended that you're saying that his actual personal protective gear is a costume. That is belittling, and I am offended for Clyde. Just saying.
If Clyde were here.
If Clyde were here.
If Clyde could figure out how to watch this on YouTube or download it on a, you know, streaming platform, like you know, he can come for me. But I don't have a whole lot of faith in Clyde's technological prowess. All right.
Shots fired at Clyde Magnuson. Unbelievable.
He can still use the NHRL Wi-Fi from that bus though, so be careful. He might be able to figure it out.
He's trading free labor for living inside of that bus, Sam. Okay, like it is
It's
bleak
bad
out there.
It's
when
bad
you
out
come
there.
down, the smell is overpowering. Okay?
I don't know how he's gonna survive the winter this year. We got to figure that out for him. But yeah, it's bad.
God bless.
Yes. So I have 2 more show-related hot takes that I'll go into. One of them is from YouTube user Simon Hadger. Sorry if I butchered your last name. My hot take is that Chris and Kenny are not that great. Quite often they say something factually wrong or show they do not know that much about the sport as a whole, like referring to Overkill's sword as a giant anime sword.
Having interviewed Kenny and knowing what we know about them, these are professionals who professionally announce sports competitions and do the research that they are required to do that. Are they Combat Robots fans outside of their job? Probably not. I'll bet this is one of their favorite gigs that they do throughout the year. I'll bet they love doing it. But I know that Kenny doesn't go like watching the other competitions. I know that Chris is not like tuning into NHRL, right? Like they're in the community so as much as they have this fun 2-week summer camp that they get to do once a year. And they love it. And they read their little binders and they have their interviews and they learn what they can about everybody and they do their job and they do their job well. I think it's kind of an unfair expectation in some ways to expect them to know everything about combat robotics.
Here's the thing, okay? Sam, I'm sorry, I'm going to bring up an American sport again. No, baseball, for example, okay? Baseball.
It's like cricket, but better.
There are easily a million baseball super fans. People who watch baseball, they are there. They watch all the stats. They love baseball so much as a sport that they get their kids into baseball. Like they've got all these local leagues that they go to. Right? There's just people who are baseball people. Okay,
yeah. They know who won the World Series and played in the World Series for the past 50 years or whatever.
And some of those like young baseball people, right? And they grow up to become announcers. And those announcers love baseball so much as a sport that even if they got fired from ESPN, they'd be watching ESPN to watch baseball. They just love baseball, right?
Chris Rose is one of those people about baseball.
Yes. If Chris Rose got fired, I guarantee you he'd still be watching baseball coverage every single weekend because he's a super fan of baseball, right? And that's what our sport needs. We need to have super fans who are also announcers. And like it's like when we have these kind of like mercenary announcers, all right, I love Chris and Kenny, but they're not super fans. They're barely even fans, okay? Like it shows on their commentary because it's not that deep. Like you are watching a fight and interesting stuff is happening inside the box that they do not understand because they have not seen a bunch of fights and they're not obsessed with the sport. And we don't have great super fan announcers yet. I mean, Kyle, I'm sorry. I mean, like we're super fans. We're mediocre
amateur
announcers at best.
Yeah.
We're amateur announcers at best. But like I love this sport so much. Yes. And like I happened to become an announcer.
If I wasn't watching, if I wasn't working at NHRL, I would be watching every NHRL.
Would Kenny be watching even BattleBots as a fan, like if he wasn't the announcer?
But
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I've never seen a Kenny Florian post on the BattleBots group. You're like, hey guys, I got a hot take. You know what I mean? Like I've been watching some of the old footage, and here's my take. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy to me that they're not part of the community at all. And like, and their BattleBots is cool with that. You know, like Chris Rose does not like exist on BattleBots internet at all, and that is wild to me that he does voice his, like, of the show.
He does his sponsored Instagram posts about BattleBots where he'll do like
they look like they're being held hostage. Okay, like hello, please watch BattleBots Thursday at 8 p.m. Okay,
I'll tell you who will be a fantastic announcer for BattleBots in the future whenever it happens. Mr. Will Bales.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's like
exactly, Sam. Like, yes.
Like with respect to Hypershock, they don't need Will Bales on the team anymore. They've got Alex who can drive the robot.
Better than Will Bales. Sorry.
Allegedly. Who knows? But you know, Will can go and commentate. Why not?
Yes.
He's done it before.
We like the bot whisperer, okay? Like combat robot super fan who is now working on the announcing team. Okay, like that is who we need.
I miss Pete so much.
We need
everybody misses Pete. That's not a hot take. We all miss Pete.
Yeah, the coldest take ever. We need the bot whisperer back.
I honestly, and this again goes back to my earlier point about confidence in your own show, confidence in your fandom. Okay, like Will Bales and Pete Abramson, maybe they're not quote unquote professional announcers, but I guarantee you that their coverage is going to be more interesting, more insightful inside of the box than Chris and Kenny. And they would rather choose Chris and Kenny because they want a polished product that's not that deep. All right. And like that, I feel like is no other sport on the planet has that. Okay. Like you'd never hire me to call a cricket match, Sam. Okay. I'd have no idea what's going on. I actually don't care. Okay. But like, I am the right person for NHRL. Kyle and I, we're the right people. Chris and Lindsay, we're the right people. You know, like we got Ricky Williams on the show. You know what I mean? Like we're all super fans of the sport itself, and we
Yes.
love being in that seat. It's not a paycheck for us, and like it's like Chris and Kenny. I'm gonna agree with you. I love them as people, but they're holding back the sport, like and its growth
Yeah.
because they're
Yeah.
not super fans.
And actually that ties into something you said earlier, Luke, about like the post-fight interviews maybe not being as interesting. If any one of us were asking those questions, I think you'd get a much better interview in the end. So
yeah, I agree with that.
Mhm.
And I think that's why the post show for the tournament this year was so well liked, because it gave the builders time to talk, to breathe, to actually express themselves, and get past
Pete
that
Abramson
knowledge.
should have been up there. He should have been running the
He would
post
have,
show.
if he could have done, he would have done. And
If he could have done it, he would have done it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Contracts being what contracts are, that was unfortunate they couldn't, but
Precisely.
but it would have been amazing.
100%.
It's confidence in your own show. Okay. Like, you know, oh, I can't afford your contract, or I need more money for like my talent. You know what I mean? Like, versus like, hey, let's just give Pete our YouTube channel or something. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
there's a thread to like my madcap ideas around BattleBots. All right. So okay.
And then the last show related hot take, because there's a lot of different suggestions in terms of like the format, you know, like how to set up the show, what types of teams to let in. And this really ties into one of my hot takes, because I really think in terms of format, the way that the tournament is set up, NHRL has this nailed, where, you know, the concept of having every other month having a tournament and then the top however many go to the finals, like, you know, having this constant stream of here's a tournament, the top bots go to the finals. You could easily have a situation where you have 4 qualifying events and have the top 8 bots from each of those events go to the finals to make the top 32, and then have a championship at the end. Like, it would be so easy to do that, and this would be a much better use of BattleBots time than these proving grounds, because there would be actual stakes for these events for people to go to. So to me, I think that BattleBots could learn a lot from NHRL in that respect, and I think that would be much better for the builders, much better for the fans. Like, there would be this constant stream of content every couple of months, and I think that would be a massive win. But that's my opinion.
It's interesting because, you know, obviously getting the cameras there and everything is also going to cost money every time they want to do that. So it's going to be difficult to kind of facilitate that maybe. But like, you're right. Like, I suppose the closest thing we do get to that is Golden Bolt. I suppose is you know, you have a tournament of, let's say, 8, and they go down to one goes through to this finals with the previous winners of yesteryear. But, you know,
Golden Bolt was better than the main season last year, in my opinion. I mean, it was a really good tournament.
Except the final. The final was a bit
correct. Correct. But the overall tournament was better by far.
Yeah. No, I agree, because it's weird because I love the fight night format. I think it's a really clever idea, and the way that they've done it, it gives everyone a chance to do loads of fights. But I do like a knockout. I do like a straight. Okay, if there's no, not holding back. That's not the right word, but like, if you look last year at, say, Hypershock versus Mad Catter got destroyed. Like, if that was in the main season, you know full well that Mad Catter would have stopped, and then Hypershock would have stopped, and it would have been a cool fight, but enough's enough. But because it was Mad Catter's last fight, they destroyed him. It was unbelievable. Like, the fights that they give out, like, you know, there's no holding back because you have to conserve parts. If you lose, you lose. You may as well go for it, and that's what I think makes it a little bit more special.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm.
All right, are we ready to move into NHRL hot takes?
NHRL.
Oh.
All right, so this is interesting. So I guess just because of Luke's and my association and Behind the Bots association with NHRL, we didn't just get BattleBots hot takes. We also got NHRL hot takes. So we wanted to go through some of the most important ones of those. So we're going to go with this question first. And this is more of a hot take question, and I think it's an important one. This is from Copperhead team member and NHRL Giant Dumpster winner Chad New. Hot take: NHRL is bad for other events, and he adds the question mark, so I go up at the end there. For other events, maybe.
I'm going to say one thing. I think it puts an unrealistic expectation on other events to be as good and well polished. Because, so for example, in the UK, obviously, I have a fairly close affiliation with the Bristol Bot Builders. We do events every couple of months.
Yep.
I've announced for them. I've competed in the events. I help do the setup and everything. They are literally, they do it all themselves. NHRL is funded by a very wealthy benefactor. There's a lot of equipment that goes into it. There's a lot of amazing people doing great things with the stream, with the camera work, with the editing, everything. It's a really well polished production. It's not realistic to have lots of people doing that, and I wouldn't say it's a bad thing for other events. It's just it sets unrealistic expectations to have 8 arenas at other events. Normally it's just 1. If you're very lucky, it's 2. Not having 6 beetleweight cages and then 2 featherweight cages. It's not really realistic. So maybe it sets unrealistic expectations for other people.
I see a lot of parallels between NHRL and esports. So like video game esports. Back in the late 90s, we had a BattleBot style television show that was like early esports. Like, hey, we're all playing, this NES game and someone's going to win $1 million, right? And like we're kind of showing your progression. It's not live. It's it's very similar to BattleBots in that way. And then we had this kind of underground esports like movement where it's like, hey, bring your computer down. It's going to be closed door. We're just going to play games together. There's going to be 10 people here. Winner gets a 3D printed prize. They didn't have 3D printers at the time, right? And like, oh, it became 100 people, and then it became 1,000 people or whatever. But it was just very underground, which is where we were right now. Like the Motoramas, Bristol Bot Builders of the world, like that is where we are. Hobbyists running this really cheaply and running it to small audiences, not streams. NHRL is the first esports event for combat robotics, where we said, like, we are going to produce it the way that every single robot like competition should be produced, because every single robot competition should be funded. And like we are now like pushing into the esports era. No one's done it before for combat robotics. And like I honestly believe I'm not under duress, even though NHL pays my paychecks, but like we are the first real like sports league for this sport. And like the great thing, Chad, about NHL is that I'm seeing super fast progression in the other, like all of the other events. Like you go to an event in the Midwest, it's now being live streamed. There is somebody who sounds like Kyle and I, like calling the fights. Like there is like stats and there's people calling out people's names and like kind of like trying to tell stories and the whole thing. And like that is great for the sport. And I don't think it would have happened without NHRL.
Yeah, and care is being given to things like pit tables all having power and appropriate accommodations for the builders, and that is like we're setting a good example for those things. Yes, it is unrealistic to expect everybody to have the graphics, the full streaming capabilities, all of the different cages, all of the stuff that we have, absolutely. But things like builder accommodations need to be taken into account, and just having a live stream with maybe some announcers is not that hard, and you can add that into what you're doing. And
even just like local hotels and things that they kind of say, hey, you should look here, or don't go here because it's a mess.
Right.
Go
right. We have a group rate at this hotel. You guys should all go here. We have a group rate. It'll be a little bit cheaper, right? That kind of stuff that people are now, you see a little bit more frequently in the community, and I think that's good.
I would. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I was going to say, to kind of build on to that, I would also say that, like, yes, you could say unrealistic, but I also think it's a really good template and proves demand and proves concept. Where other people, there could be investors that maybe wouldn't have thought about investing in some kind of robot combat league, but then sees what Norwalk's doing and is like, hey, people really like this. Maybe I want to put some money into this and like find some people that would be able to execute this well, So I think that it shows, hey, there is demand for this, and maybe we can do this in other places.
Yep. Yeah, we saw that in Brazil with Streetbots. Like, they were huge fans of NHRL, and Streetbots looks a lot like NHRL, and that's really, really cool. So yeah, I don't know, like sharp blade, I don't know, sharpens everyone else's blades. I don't know, what is that the phrase? I don't know.
No, I don't
yeah,
think so.
You know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Like, you got you've inspired a lot of people to follow in your like example, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah. All right, so this is a quick one. I just want a yes or no. Norwalk needs to ban glitter and confetti. This is a Nate Franklin question, but there are quite a few builders that are on this ban glitter and confetti train. I am not a builder at an HRL. I am an announcer at an HRL, and I say keep more glitter and more confetti, more for everyone, please. Thank you very much. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's a huge part of what we do. I think it's a part of the charm of the event. I think it's hilarious when people decide to fill their bots full of glitter, and ablative glitter armor is now a thing. All of it's amazing. Make it happen. And keep NHRL silly and keep it glittery and confetti-ish. That's my opinion. Does anybody differ on that?
Yeah,
I want to see a 2.5 pound. I want to see a 2.5 pound bag of glitter on a half-pound drivetrain. Okay, like that's
what when Nate Franklin finishes his beetle, I want the first opponent who goes up against him to do that, because I think that would be hilarious. By the way, Nate Franklin has like 3 beetles. He just doesn't have any that qualify for NHRL. But when he finishes his NHRL beetle,
the only caveat I'd say to that is I did an event over here. It was an ant weight event, a fairy weight event over here. They do a Christmas event for BBB, and there is a glitter cannon robot over here that does glitter cannon things at a fairy weight scale. I'm still finding glitter inside the motors of my ant weight from about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's still like excreting glitter from places I didn't know that glitter could go. So that's the only thing I don't like about it. It's another. What's the difference between that and a projectile weapon, I guess, is my thing. Is like it gets sucked into places it shouldn't be going into, like silly string, or it bothers me a little bit from a pure competition point of view, but from a silliness point of view, absolutely. More flamethrowers, more squirty cream out the back of a robot, glitter, all sorts. I want to see foodstuffs in there, why not?
Yeah, I totally understand that glitter is really annoying for people who are trying to keep their speed controllers and their motors and all of their things operable. I get that. I totally understand. But also, that's kind of what you sign up for if you go to an HRL. You don't want glitter in your robot, go to Motorama. You know what I mean? Like, that's part of the game. That's part of what we do.
Very fair.
All right, so we have several hot takes that fall around this. Jeff Waters, Alex Pezza. These are people that have competed at NHRL. Norwalk was better with a double elimination structure. I think that there is an argument to be made that is true from a pure sports and competition standpoint. I think you have to agree that double elimination is just better for the purists. Is the show more entertaining now and easier to watch without it? For people watching it, is it more digestible now? I think there's definitely an argument to be made there. I am very torn on this one. I don't know how I feel about it and what would be better. I know Luke has the strongest opinions of any human being alive on it. So we will get to that. But Sam, Christine, what are your thoughts on the removal of the double elimination system at NHRL? Christine, we'll just go ahead and start with you if you've got something for us.
I mean, I can mainly speak to this from having competed in May. Since that was the only competition that I've done, I really have nothing to compare it to from a competitor standpoint.
Sure, but you watched the other ones.
Oh yeah. I mean, for me, it was fine. Especially because it's single elimination, but like not 100%, because you have the qualifying, and in the qualifying you still do get to fight a second time even if you lose. So for me, like, I knew I was going to get to fight at least twice, And that was really what was important to me. But I can definitely appreciate and understand from a tournament perspective why people would want to have like that losers bracket option. So I can get it from both sides, but for me, like the single elimination was fine. I didn't really have any issue with it.
Sam, you've been involved in putting together a lot of competitions and working these events. What are your thoughts on kind of that tournament change at NHRL?
So the ones that I do have been like worked with and affiliated with over here have been generally it's single elimination after a point anyway. So everyone gets a guaranteed 2 fights. So
right.
you have okay, we do melees, but you can do opening round fights as well. One-on-ones, whatever, or rumbles. That's not if you prefer the term, and then. Then you have the winner of that fight goes through, and then you have the 2 losers go and fight into a bracket. The losers again are out. They could do some whiteboards later on, and the winners carry on in the tournament, that kind of thing. From a pure competitor point of view, I mean, for me, I'm terrified of turning up to Norwalk in a couple of weeks' time and just getting bounced after one fight, traveling all that way, right? Right. As soon as I heard, oh my god, they're changing the format, that was terrifying for me. But it's the same for everyone else, ultimately, I like the idea of having multiple fights, but if you lose 2 fights, then that's just how it goes sometimes. I'm also very conscious of the fact that for people like yourself and Luke and others that work on the show, it is a long slog. Like oftentimes I've gone to bed over here, after watching the stream, I wake up in the morning, it's still going, and that shouldn't be a thing. Ultimately, from my perspective, you shouldn't be getting to the middle of the night and it's still being, rounds to go. So,
Sam, but the early morning for you content is so entertaining.
I can see the delirium. It's great.
being waterboarded by our employer.
Oh my god! Do you know what I mean? Like, I enjoy the fact that there is a second chance, a guaranteed second chance for NHRL, or in the past there has been, but. I am also very aware that, people have human rights and want to sleep. So I quite like the fact that they've changed it. I like the fact that they've changed it, and they've guaranteed people 2 fights still in the qualifiers if you want them.
Yeah.
I've given this way more thought than I should have, and I've pitched this to every single person at NHRL all the way to the top. They hate the idea, so I'm just going to make the appeal to the masses. Okay, all right. NHRL should go to just a fully ranked single elimination bracket for what's televised. So here's how it works. Top 32. If you're the top ranked 32 robots, you get put into a conventional bracket. You fight for 3.5 hours. We cut it together into a 45-minute show. You get to watch it on ESPN. Okay. A little bit of stories kind of in there, but those are our 32 robots that we're going to be following, right? We have an unlimited number of people like Sam and Christine who show up for the first time, and they get to fight in a different tournament, totally unranked freestyle. You get to fight as many times as you want. Sam, if you want to fight 8 times, you can do that, right? There's a prize at the end, okay? We have some kind of point system, but there is no repair window. There's no calling you up to the desk. You just go there, they match you randomly with whoever else is ready in line, and we are fighting all day long in those 5 cages that are down there. We are going to see 400, 500, 700 fights just back to back to back to back, and the results are put into a system, and then we crown a winner. They win cash, they win a trophy, right? The whole thing, and it's probably even more difficult to win that than it is to win the ranked 32. But when you go through that process, you build a ranking. So you can come back the second time, and now I'm ranked number 18 in the world, right? Because I did great in my freestyle tournament. Now I can come back and I can enter that one, right? I just think it's a way more flexible way to do it. It's more TV friendly and really kind of builds out this kind of concept of there is a world ranking of the world's best robots. And, if you show up as robot number 1, you are absolutely going to be fighting in this kind of super competitive, right out of the gate, 9 a.m. It's super competitive. But they don't like that idea, Kyle. They've told me no many times, all right?
They have.
And they've left me on red now, Kyle, okay, with this idea. They hate it, okay?
It's true. They're not big fans of it.
We're going to keep doing what we're doing until,
I think
Someone
because the
sees the light,
narrative,
Kyle.
it might have something to do with the fact that the narrative of like that freestyle tournament would be hard to present to fans. I personally, for builders, I think it's great because it incentivizes you to fight more at a tournament. If you show up at a tournament and fight 6 times, that's going to bode well for you. You're going to have a better overall ranking based on that.
The live fan experience would be amazing because you have 4 cages that are fighting constantly, and there is no downtime at all. The builder experience is better because, oh, hey, I'm an 8-year-old kid. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't have to fight every 20 minutes. I can fight when I'm ready, and I'm going to go down there. I'm going to fight, whoever's next in line. And like, it's easier for us to do logistically. Like pit control basically has a very easy job. It's much more about like kind of event, like kind of match management down at the bottom. Um, I just think it's a better rookie experience, for your first NHRL. But I mean, Sam, to like, ideally in my world, right? Like there is a Bristol Bot Builders qualifier where you can start to build your ranking before you come here. So at least like, hey, I know that I'm going to be in the main tournament, or I know that I'm going to really plan for this kind of marathon day, or I get to kind of choose, like, do I want to do 8 fights? Sure, I want to do that. Or do I want to just fight my friends one time and then go home? Like, that's cool too. Yes, Kyle, they hate the idea.
Yeah, not fans. Yes. But I did want to give us one more opportunity to discuss.
I'm gonna beat this horse until it's fully dead.
We know,
right?
We know you are.
Keep flogging.
So one of the other things that I wanted to point out, this is another one of the Jeff Waters takes. NHRL is the hardest and most expensive event in the country to attend logistically, unless you live within driving distance.
I agree.
Is it? Is it really?
I mean, for me, it is.
Really? Yeah. Well, you're coming. I think anywhere in the United States, unless like it was literally at the international airport in New York, it would be
US Embassy in the UK might be feasible, but everything else is a challenge. Yeah.
Sure. I think there are definitely more logistically challenging events than this one. It's not that bad to like fly into LaGuardia and make your way over. Like it's really not.
Here's the thing that drives me nuts. Okay, Jeff Waters has competed at Motorama, which is like that is a one stoplight, one horse town, Harrisburg. Okay,
in the middle
Harrisburg,
of Pennsylvania
is you will see things out there that you've never seen before and you'll never see since. Okay,
yes,
all right.
True.
Like you go to Motorama and like everyone's like, oh my god, that's so great, right? Okay, no, you got to drive at minimum an hour from the nearest civilization where they have any direct flights. Okay, we're in Connecticut. Okay, like we're the center of the.
I think Ben Hassan, who travelled over to there before, it says like 50 minutes from JFK, so it's
correct.
Yeah.
So it's not too bad.
It's an hour. It's an hour from JFK. Yeah, it's not bad. It's really not bad. It's 45 minutes if you drive like a crazy Northeastern American, but yeah, it's about 50 minutes. It's not bad. And there's plenty of hotels. There's lots of really good food. The area is nice. Like it's actually a really nice place to be and just walk around. There's great aquariums there. I think it's fine. I think it's fine.
I mean, to Jeff's point, like Vegas is a little easier to get into logistically just because it's wide open spaces and you're just everything is just a straight highway somewhere, but yeah, I don't know. Can I get a little bit harder? But I get it. I don't know. Like at least we're not fighting in North Dakota or something,
Very true. Very true. Okay, so there's just 2 other ones that I wanted to kind of read real quick because I'm not sure if I believe in this sentiment so much. I think it's a little bit more synergetic than this, but Michael Cross says NHRL is eclipsing BattleBots as the best robot fighting league. In response, BattleBots is adding content like Road to the Giant Nuts. BattleBots is scared S-less. We don't typically cuss on this podcast, so I'm just gonna like edit that out. And then Ian, NHRL has more to offer than BattleBots does in terms of risk versus reward, variety, fun, etc., etc. I think they're just 2 different experiences. I don't necessarily think one is better than the other, and I think that BattleBots is better at some things than NHRL. And I think it seems kind of silly to compare them because it's like it is just they're not similar enough for there to be a direct comparison. One is a reality TV show about a robot fighting competition, and the other one is a robot fighting competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's kind of it's difficult with BattleBots because obviously it is the scale is very different, and not even in the sense that just the the competitors and everything else. The robots are tenfold, sometimes 100-fold more expensive. It's insane, and the level of money that goes into them is insane. And I think that it kind of, it's hard to judge NHL and BattleBots the same, because ultimately, as much as NHL has grown into what it is today, it wasn't always that. It used to be just another live event. It was very fortunate that it's kind of grown into what it's become, whereas BattleBots has always been a TV show, as far as I'm aware. Obviously, it did have live events as well, but it's for the most part, it's always been a TV show.
Correct.
So you can't really judge the two of them the same. It's not, one is an institution as such, and then one has kind of developed its own legacy, so to speak, in NHRL.
I would push back on kind of the fundamental premise of this, like, kind of this idea, in that I don't believe that NHRL or BattleBots are sports leagues yet. They are individual, single, like, kind of fully curated, owned experiences, right?
Yes.
It's like if Sam soccer, right? If every single team was owned by the same billionaire, right? And every single stadium was like, you could only go to one stadium in the country to see soccer, right? I do think that NHL will become a sports league faster than BattleBots will become a sports league. I don't think BattleBots in its current form can ever become a sports league. It is just too big. It is too expensive. The scale is just too much. And what I'm hoping for is that BattleBots and NHL can, like, formally partner to, like, create an actual, like, kind of synergistic relationship, where your qualifying, like, route comes through NHRL. Like, you are going to be one of 1,000 30-pounders fighting, and BattleBots is watching, there are spots to get onto the show, and money to build a heavyweight, but you first have to build a 30-pounder, and you have to fight at an NHL league. And similarly with NHRL, like, we have to give up some of our control, and we have to allow the Bristol builders to run an NHRL event.
I mean,
if they want to
offer some sponsorship, I'm sure they'll talk.
No, of course. But I mean, like we need to have a real, like, feeder system into NHRL that doesn't exist right now.
Big
like,
pyramid system.
Yes,
yeah.
Yeah.
Ultimately, there could be a lot more people who could compete at 3-pound level than as Jameson said earlier, that can compete at 250, because not everyone has the amount of money, time, resource, knowledge base that everyone, the BattleBots teams have, and they need help.
And I think that if BattleBots wasn't so obsessed with control, that they would probably do stuff like this. They would say, like, hey, we're going to run a BattleBots NHRL crossover, like, competition, right? And we're sending our celebrity judges down to, like, judge 3-pound competitions, because like, we want to give you some of our, like, social media cachet. And on the other side, like, NHRL, like, I wish that they would accept that, and, like, there is just institutional kind of stuff on both sides where that's not happening. Like, BattleBots doesn't want to give up, like, control, and they really sincerely believe that they own the sport as a category, and that everyone else who's creating things that are not 250-pound robots are just kind of, like, living in their shadow, which is kind of sad. And NHRL has, like, a pretty high locus of control about stuff, and they are worried that when we start fighting in basements and churches and hobby shops, and other people are able to call themselves an NHRL qualifier, that they're going to lose some of that control too. So, like, I think there's, like, some stuff there that's institutional that I wish didn't exist on both sides.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into some discussion on the future of BattleBots. So we're going to go to BattleBot superfan and Horizon team member Mary Catherine Carr. She has two kind of global questions that I think are important to ask. First of all, what is truly the best way to grow BattleBots? And second of all, will BattleBots ever thrive with the current leadership in place?
Christine, I'll let you go first on this one. This one's a heavy one to go with, so I'll have a think.
It is heavy. And I mean, I've talked a little bit to a couple of the folks who are heavily involved with BattleBots about this. And I mean, as far as like growing BattleBots and growing the sport in general, I mean, I've even suggested things with like promoting like the podcast content and stuff, like promote it on their social media, because the more people who listen to shows and like listen to the content, the more that helps grow things organically. Those are like little things that don't even really cost anything to do other than the time to share the content. And just like definitely listening more to the builders and the fans. I think that they definitely did listen for this last season, but I think that there can be even more that they can take from that feedback to make it better. So I think those would probably be my top things that I would suggest.
Again, I think growing BattleBots is hard. That's a really hard thing to say, because obviously they've been trying to do that for 25 plus years now, and they've done a decent job of it. I think that this last season was very good. I think it's been very well received, and I think it's probably regarded by a lot of people as the best season of the show since it's come back. Certainly since it's come back, maybe ever.
Probably ever, yeah.
I do also feel ultimately BattleBots is and robot combat in general is a niche. It's not for everyone. Not everyone gets it. Not everyone understands what's going on, and it's a good spectacle. It's good to watch, but not everyone's going to be invested in the same way that not everyone's invested in. We mentioned earlier about crocheting, Luke. It's not for everyone. So for me, it's, have you saturated the audience? Probably not. There's probably people out there that don't really know that it exists. When you talk to someone, when I speak to someone about, I do robot combat, it's like, oh, do you remember Robot Wars 20 years ago? It's not, do you remember Robot Wars, the reboot that was literally 5 years ago? That kind of thing. It's kind of, a lot of it is still run off nostalgia, maybe. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong in saying that, but I don't know. It's a really tough question. If I had the answer, I'm sure that Greg and Trey would pay me a lot of money to give them the answer. So it's a really, really tough one.
Sam, they wouldn't, because that organization is run by their friends and family members. All right, like my biggest gripe with BattleBots in general is that Greg and Trey like created an idea in their heads in the late 90s that they have not challenged. Like, it has to be 250 pounds. Why? It has to be a like massive battle box. And the battle box is like kind of king, right? Like, oh, my box, the arena, right? Why? Why is that? There can't be, like the live show, like that is a huge like departure from like their idea of like, what are we? We make a cable TV show, right? Like, why aren't there more arenas around the country? Like, could someone else have created that model, that true sports model, like, or was it just this kind of fanatical control that Greg and Trey have over their brand that just did not allow them to give up any of that? Like, when you see a social media post, it is Greg Munson creating that social media post himself.
Correct.
That is insane. Okay, like, if I see a like a Sony Pictures like social media post is not being created by the CEO or the co-founder of Sony, you know what I mean? Like, we like, they don't even trust a social media intern to like create this content for them, and in that way, like, I don't know how far robot combat could have gone in the last 20 years if someone else was running it. So I'll tell you, I mean, Sam, like, I have the same experience. People are like, hey, what's your hobby? And I'm like, yo, I'm really into fighting robots. And they are like, what is that? Like, that sounds awesome. And then I'm like, check it out on TikTok. Like, come and just watch one fight with me. And they are hooked. They're like, how do I get more of this? This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And we are watching freaking bowling on ESPN, and we're not watching robot fighting on ESPN. That is insane. They have arm wrestling on ESPN 8, right? Like, what are we doing here? Like, could we hire the arm wrestling league CEO and have that person run robot fighting, run BattleBots? Could it be better? Could it be bigger? Probably, probably. So Mary Catherine Carr, yes, I agree with this hot take.
Interesting.
I think there is a role, a really important, great role for Greg and Trey, and like they have to give us some control, I think, to really grow it. And if that's something that they're actually interested in doing, they have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Christine, any input on that?
I mean, I agree with a lot of that. I think that sometimes when something is like, your baby and your creation, you're so like invested in it that you don't see things that other people might see. And that's why I think that there's definitely a need to have like outside thoughts and opinions of what could be done. Because Luke, I agree with you. I mean, granted, I love robot combat, but I also don't see any reason why that can't be on something like ESPN more so than arm wrestling or whatever the case may be. I mean, to me, that would be far more interesting. And it makes me wonder if it's being marketed or like, pitched in the right way. That maybe that pitch needs to be a little bit stronger or come across a little bit more differently. But I mean, that's my personal opinion.
Yeah. Antway builder Kyle Cuffrey wants to kind of add to this idea. BattleBots needs to move towards a live televised sports broadcast model and away from pre-recorded and edited content model. This would have to involve shorter fight nights being held weekly or bi-weekly across the year, and almost certainly necessitate paying the teams enough for this to be their full-time jobs or at least a part-time job. This couldn't be an overnight change, but this is how all other sports work, and allows many more opportunities for them to recoup the investment with pricier recorded night tickets mixed in with their live show events, which I think is true. And there's a hybrid of that happening right now, but we'll see. I also wanted to mention Ethan Van Gorp said, combine Hot Ones with BattleBots. Each team's driver must sit down for a pregame interview with Sean Evans, and immediately after consuming hot wings, battle each other in the box. This needs to be a separate content event. I want to watch it. I definitely want to see Will Bales try to drive Hypershock after eating something on the like 2000 Scoville scale of hot wings. That would be amazing.
The only problem with that theory is imagine the rush to the bathroom afterwards.
Yeah, no, that's going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible, and we all know that the bathroom facilities at BattleBots are not the best.
It'd be spicy in the arena, spicy out of it. It's not good.
Yeah, no, the urine river is going to be real bad.
If you lose a match, you have to chug a bottle of the bomb.
Yes, there you go. There we go. Or
if you lose a fight, you have to eat a Carolina Reaper. No milk.
All right, so we're gonna get into like the money side of life. We talked about the money side of life a lot last year. Let's keep this a little bit more kind of centralized. Sawblaze Captain Jameson Go says, if you restricted money, there is little motivation to have diversity. People will probably build two-wheel drive vertical discs. Very battle and cost effective. Right now, there is no cap on how much effort you want to invest and let people chase their dreams. There are teams which sink a lot of money and yet don't win. So money isn't a tell-all indicator of success. So I just wanted to read that as like kind of the counter argument to Ryan Hunter saying, BattleBots is reaching an inflection point where it needs to decide if it's F1 with several teams with big sponsors or find a way to cut off the money gain before it cuts half of the field from partaking. I don't know. I tend to side more with the Jameson Go side of life on this. I don't think we need spending caps. I think that would end up becoming being a creativity gap. Or
here's my challenge with this. Okay, it's because there's a selection committee that does not allow you to build what you want to build.
Correct.
And that like creates this kind of environment where you're like, I'm not going to get in with this design that I really love. I have to create a spider that shoots silly string out of its butt, right? Because it's the only way that I can get onto the show.
Correct.
So the challenge to is that like there's the only people who can really win the sport are super wealthy. And like, is that cool? Like, do we like that? Like, are we, I don't know. I guess that's the same for every single sport. There's really not a
Correct.
sport on the planet
No.
where poor people get to win, which sucks,
At least in
like
BattleBots, it's not the wealthiest of teams that wins every time. Jameson goes a teacher at MIT. You know what I mean? Like there's definitely people who don't have crazy jobs that
there
do
needs to be
well in this
more
sport.
Leicester Cities and things like that, right? Who won the Premier League a few years ago. But like that, you're right. Like ultimately, robots like Mad Catter are the exception to the rule, and Jackpot are the exception to the rule, where they can extract a lot of performance from a robot that is very basic compared to a lot of others, right?
Yeah.
But it's because they've got good brain power. They know exactly what they're doing. They maximize every little bit of their resource that they've got. So Jameson is right in that sense. But I also do think, if you look at maybe the most well-backed teams don't win every year. That is very true. But they tend to do better than those that aren't, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I think too, like just in general, BattleBots as a format, just hamstringing your sponsorship activities also is really sucks, Like I want to see a Coca-Cola robot, and let's create the environment where that can exist. And maybe it's not a reality show on the Discovery Channel. Maybe it is a legitimate sports like broadcast on ESPN. Like I want to see the Coca-Cola robot.
I want to see the Google robot. I want to see
Yeah,
I want to
because
see all that.
In its current form, like we've had literal billionaires compete on the show before. And for them, it's like, oh, I can just power my robot on money because money means nothing to me, like uh which is kind of wild because like they don't provide any of that context either. It's not like they're providing the context of like, hey, this robot is poorly designed, but it has brand new components because they just throw out the motors at the end of every single match.
Right.
Going up against a robot where the motors haven't been swapped out in 4 years,
Right.
like
the only time they did add that was like, wow, Jeff Waters built a competitive robot for what did they always say, $4,000 or something like that?
3,000, something like that.
It was like, yeah, they were always like, they really touted that. And it was like, well, that's, yeah, but why? Why is that cool? Why is that important? Compare that to what everybody else is doing. Like, let's talk about that a little bit.
But also, to your average person, it's still a lot of money. It's still a lot of money.
It's a ton of money.
It's no vacation. It's no other hobbies. You can't. If you wanted to take up another, let's say golf. If you want a set of golf clubs, you're a golfer. You're not going to buy a new set of golf clubs every year, are you?
No.
We're watching wealthy people create a league for other wealthy people to compete in. Which I mean, like it's not your fault that you're a brilliant engineer, you've patented something, and now you're wealthy. You know what I mean? And of course, you want to go up against other brilliant engineers. But it's like not a true representation of the kind of like wonderful colorful palette of human experience. Like there's lots of really ingenious people who just don't have the money to get onto BattleBots, and they could probably win a giant nut if they had the opportunity to do so. And like we don't have a grant program, or we don't have kind of like a centralized sponsorship package where everyone who signs up gets $50,000 in sponsorship money like right out of the gate. It's like you've got this kind of race for sponsors, like can I get a good sponsor person to basically sell for me, is like a defining factor in whether you win. And it's like, I guess it's not the most exciting part of the sport, the money part. I don't.
I agree.
I agree. I'm not sure what my point was there, other than it's artificially small. Like the field is artificially small because of money. Like money creates a smaller sport than it could be or should be.
I want the sponsorships to open up. Yeah. And I want them to not have to get their sponsorships approved. I know that there has to be some sort of approval process because you don't want like Pornhub sponsoring a robot, for instance. But like
some might.
Well,
I've never heard of that company. What is that company about?
We'll tell you when you're older.
Not familiar.
Yeah, we'll tell you when you're older. But like, I get why there needs to be some vetting, but I think overall it should be like, is this an appropriate sponsor for the show? Not will Discovery and their mega bucks be okay with us getting this sponsor for a robot and not for their TV show? That doesn't bode well for me. I don't like that concept. I think that's unfair to the teams and the builders and whatnot. I do think the teams need to be able to get sponsors, and that needs to be an important part of what they do. And there needs to be people out hunting for them and working for them, and that's literally their only job on the team. Like that should be a part of the sport. That should be a part of anything like this.
Everyone needs a marketing guy.
Yeah, that should just be a part of building a team, building a brand, building a league. But I don't think that the league itself should be telling you who you can and can't use within a large degree of reason. I think that, saying that you're not allowed to be sponsored by genocidal regimes, sure. That's a good one. but not because Discovery doesn't like it.
Kyle, the PGA Tour would like a word with you. All right. Okay.
I got feelings about that too.
Oh, good. Okay, so to cap off this, I don't know, how long are we going? 6.5 hours? This is great.
Yeah, pretty close to it.
I feel like we can all choose one of these final hot takes about ourselves and our podcasts. Okay. So I'll just go. First off, Thomas Carroll, who helps run Pit Control at NHL, his hot take is clam pizza is good. Thomas, you're wrong. I'm so sorry. Okay.
I mean, seafood in general is like snot, and I hate it. So,
Sam.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I know.
No.
I know.
You're coming to the belly of the beast. This is Connecticut.
Here's the thing. Okay, so I've spoken because one of my friends, Rob, who's coming with me, is he's got a pizza themed robot, right? So we have agreed to try clam pizza while we're there.
Ooh. Wow.
I'm terrified at the prospect because I don't like seafood anyway, but it's respecting other people's cultures, so I feel like we have to do it.
Connecticut has no culture other than white-collar financial crime. Okay, like that's Connecticut.
I mean,
culture.
like maybe like a culture and a petri dish, maybe, but.
All right. Okay, clam pizza. Lindsay, she grew up right across the street from one of the most famous clam pizza places in Connecticut, and she took us to clam pizza for the first time. And it was shocking. Sam, you have to mentally prepare yourself. Okay. It is an acquired taste in that, like, if I see it now on the menu, I'm like, Pavlov's dog. I need to order
to get flashbacks.
Yeah. It's exactly. However, I will say just universally, okay, if clam pizza was actually good, you'd see it all over the world. Okay, Sam, like you'd be able to order clam pizza at the pub. Okay, like we have fish and chips here. Okay, because fish and chips objectively are tasty. Yeah. Okay, everywhere on the planet you can order pizza. Okay, you can probably get pizza in Antarctica. Okay, you can't get clam pizza. Okay, you can get pepperoni perhaps. So clam pizza, acquired taste. Proud Connecticutans, they will take this to the grave that it's good. But it has never even escaped the borders of their state. Okay, you can't get clam pizza anywhere else in this country. So that's I don't know. The people have spoken. Kyle, do you want to pick one of these? Or
yeah, well, there's a couple we can bang out very quickly. First of all,
no. You only get to pick one, Kyle. You get to pick your favorite.
Some of them are not questions. They're just they don't even need discussion. First of all, Tara Fisher just wants to say that the RoboCast is the best BattleBots podcast without question.
Disagree.
I agree.
No.
It's pretty darn good. But
she's
this
very
is the
wrong.
one. So this is one that I am very curious about. Okay, so huge team member and noted chaos agent Don Dorfler wants to know who is I'm throwing all of us under the bus here, guys. Are you ready? Who is your least favorite combat robotics podcast?
Okay, I've got a really easy answer for this one.
Sure.
RoboCast.
Dan, what
that's
did they
the one
do
you
to
probably
you?
listen to the most.
Well, by necessity, I have to listen to it because I've got to edit it.
Sam,
it's done things to me. It's done things to me over the years.
I agree with you, Tara. I feel like RoboCast is the top. The worst robot combat podcast
There's no
is.
bad ones. I've not seen any bad ones.
There are.
Oh
there are bad
no,
ones.
no, there are bad
Oh,
ones.
are there?
There are definitely bad
I mean,
ones.
I've not seen any bad ones. That's all I'm gonna say. You know.
I don't know. I feel bad. I feel like I'm kind of punching down now if I like kind of bring it up. Can I punt this one, Kyle, or is that?
See, I brought this up because I didn't want you to punt it. So like, you go ahead and punt it if you want.
Okay.
But
all right. The unofficial BattleBots podcast.
Ooh, shots fired.
They're not making the show anymore. They're not making the show anymore.
I think they are not making the show just because they failed to find product market fit. All right, like so it's fine. I just think you need to bring more. You know, like you gotta. It's not about us. You know, like I say at the end of a 4-hour podcast of just us, but like. It's not about us. Like, we are idiots. Don't listen to us. Like, it's about highlighting the builders. You know, like I feel like they missed the mark. So, yeah. Unofficial BattleBots podcast. Do better. All right.
Wow. Touch grass.
All right, Christine. Do you have a least favorite one?
See, and that's a tough question for me to answer because admittedly, I don't really listen to the podcast. Like if there's a guest or a topic that I'm really interested in, I'll make the effort to like make time to listen to it. But like as a mom, as like working full time and like doing my own, like I don't have time. So I can't really answer that question because I don't often listen to them.
You're like these fans of BattleBots that skip the Farouk intros. You just like if behind the bots has an amazing like get or whatever, you just skip all of the fluff and go straight to the builder. Sorry, that's great. Yeah. All right.
I listened to the whole that you did with Greg. With Greg, I listened to that whole thing.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, so for me.
Wait. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Good, Kyle. Yes.
She gave one.
Yeah.
So for me, while I do agree, my least favorite one to listen to was probably the unofficial BattleBots podcast. That is also, I just didn't enjoy it. Like I like them individually. They're nice enough guys. I just didn't like their takes. For me, the one I'm grumpiest at right now is bots, because they just disappeared. I was loving their content. They were two novice people who were just getting into the sport, and they were like, it was so fun to listen to them kind of learn about it and figure stuff out and get to understand it and like kind of learn all the back behind the scenesy stuff that they were learning. And you know, they were finally just starting to build themselves up, and then they're gone. Ninja vanished. Don't answer their Instagram messages. They're just gone.
Let the record show that I was the only person out of the four of us to stick my neck out, okay, and actually call out somebody by name. Okay, everyone else, we're all politicians here.
We're all cowards.
Okay, all right. Christine, do you want to pick the next one?
I will, because I will pick the one submitted by someone who I know is a fan of Outside of the Box, which is Steve Dufort, saying, use podcasters as guest commentators, giving them exposure is a win-win for everyone. I've always been a huge proponent of this. In fact, a number of times I've been like, because I see all of these posts saying bring back Jenny Taft, and I'm like, I'm right here, and I guarantee you can pay me a lot less than Jenny Taft, and I will be able to do a commendable job. So, like, I really think that would be great for BattleBots, is have some of us, occasionally do something, and I think it just helps grow the sport even more.
Completely agree. I mean,
I agree.
Christian, I don't know about yourself, but I know myself, Kyle, and Luke have all called fights before as well. Like, just as a little bit of, every sport has its color and its play-by-play commentator, right? BattleBots has tried to do that. Kelly's kind of the play-by-play with the analysis because he's done UFC. It's transferable. It's not quite the same. I feel like we'd all do a serviceable job at his role. I don't know.
Yes,
that makes sense. We'd make an attempt.
Yes, I agree. All right,
Sam, bring us home.
That's you, Sam. You got to pick one of these.
Bring us home. Okay. Well, I was going to talk about how we're going to finally hire Matt Vasquez as the fourth host, but obviously we've now got David himself, so that's no longer the case. So I'll round it off with the lovely, lovely Tony D'Ambrosio from Team Omega.
We love Tony.
I love Tony. Tony's an absolute top bloke. He's a top bloke. Luke Stangle has the best hair in combat robotics.
Fact.
Absolute facts. There's nothing hot about that take. It's the coldest take you've ever heard in your life.
Tony, I am sorry that I'm an icon, okay? Cultural icon, I'm a sports icon, I'm a community icon. All right, that's fine.
Do you know what it is, Luke, as well? With the leather jacket as well, I reckon like people would be scared of you.
Here's the thing, all right? I am the least intimidating person ever. I was just born into the wrong body. Like I
know, yeah.
I'm telling you, psychically, okay, I'm like a 110-pound like book reader who's got just, I don't know, like just a mousy person who drinks tea like in a library. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the guy they photographed for the Shreddit Bro team is like the most scary biker that ever walked the face of the earth. Just gonna rip your face off.
I feel like you need spikes all over you as well. Like I feel like that's like that's the logical next step.
Yeah.
Do you ride a motorbike, Tony? Luke?
No. I've got a bicycle though. Like that.
I feel like
he drives a affordable family car.
Yeah. I'm a pretty low profile person. Yeah. I could try riding the bicycle with my leathers on. Okay.
Yes, that's a photo I want to see.
I will tell you, like the one thing I really want to do, like the mode of transportation I really want to do is ride my one wheel around town, which is kind of like the nerdy conveyance of choice, and just wear one of those like demented Cookie Monster costumes from Times Square.
Yes.
I live in a very, very small village, and it would just create a lot of confusion, I think, and it'd be perfect. Like that's the kind of chaotic energy I'm trying to bring, right? So yeah, Tony, I'm sorry about my body, and thanks so much for thanks very much for making this the last hot take of this delightful crossover episode. Christine, Kyle, Sam, and even myself, I love you guys. All right, this has been great. This is so much fun. And can't wait for this time next year to do it again.
Sounds good. I can't wait to do it myself.
Thanks, everybody.